Welcome to this video where we will talk about the movie The Chronicle of Narnia, Prince Caspian. We will begin by exploring the movie's storyline, summarizing its plots, and discussing the cast and characters. Then we will take a closer look at the film production detail and box office performance. Finally, we will share reviews and audience reactions to give you a well-rounded perspective. Let's get started. The Chronicles of Narnian Prince Caspian film. The Chronicles of Narnian Prince Caspian is a 2000 epic fantasy film produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Walden Media and based on the original C.S. Lewis novel. It opened in theaters on May 16 in the United States and on June 26 in the United Kingdom. It was released on DVD on November 17 in the UK and December 2 in the US. Currently, no extended edition DVD or Blu-ray follows. Prince Caspian, however, on March 11, 2012, the ABC Family Channel aired an extended cut of the film that included 4 of the deleted scenes found on the Prince Caspian specially featured discs. After Caspian hit theaters, Disney was disappointed at how much money it dropped at the box office and so decided against any future production. 20th Century Fox and joined Walden Media for the third movie, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader film. Plot. 1 year has passed in Peter, Susan, Edmund and the Lucy Pevense's world, but unknown to them, hundreds of years have passed in the Narnian after they had their last adventure. The land is now ruled at the Telmarine British human who drove the old Narnians into hiding. On the night a baby is born, Dr. Cornelius tells his student Prince Caspian to flee to the wood because his uncle Miraz now has an heir he can get rid of his nephew. Caspian flees into the wood, followed by the number of guards led by Glosser sent to kill him, but he soon falls off his horse and encounters 2 old Narnians, Davros, Trumpkin and Nipkarik, who find him just when the assassins arrive. Reminded by Cornelius that he should blow the horn in his most dire need, he does so. Back in the earth, the Pevensies are still trying to adapt it to their life in the England. Peter is having the hardest time getting caught in a fight at the station suddenly as the train rushes by the tunnel turns into a cave in Narnia. The Pevensies soon recognize the location as Care prevails their old castle, but it was forgotten and slowly began to rot away. Luckily, they located the treasure room with the aid of the adamant flashlight, which contained their weapons from the Father Christmas expected Susan Horn, which has left to hunting to the wide stage and the Narnian clothes that fed them during the beginning of their region. Meanwhile, Miraz exhibits a captured Trumpkin as a proof that the Narnians were not extended have kidnapped Caspian. This gives the council enough audience to raise an army to exterminate the Narnians once and for all. He has 2 men to drone Trumpkin, but he used the Pevensies to prove that they are kings and queens of Narnia. Trumpkin fights against Edmund, who beats him. They soon learn the trees are sleeping and the few animals cannot talk anymore. Caspian wakes up in a hollow tree, overhearing a talk bigger truffle hunter as a Nebkarik talking about to do with him. Truffle hunter and does not want to kill him, but the Nipkarik does as they take to the dancing lawn. They are chased by Tilmarin soldiers who had quickly taken up by the Rapi chief at the dancing lawn. Most of the gathered Narnians don't trust his Caspian, but Caspian promises to bring peace between their people if they help him claim to the Telmarine who throne his uncle, and the Narnians expect him as their king. On the route, Aslan, how Lucy as Aslan, though the other did not any own Abdaman believe that she has. After reaching the Bronze River, they find they cannot cross it because of the Tilmarine force building a bridge. Finally, 2 others follow Lucy led and safely cross the river. The night as they rise, Susan and Lucy discuss why nobody but Lucy could see Aslan. Late, Lucy goes looking at Aslan, but instead of finding him, she almost encountered a miniature named Asturias. Peter goes to strike an old enemy only to stopped by Caspian. They make joint force and come to Aslan, how which is built over the stone table. After Narnians write a large number of supplies from Glosser Miraz and added his story to how the Caspian as the instigator of the revolt to win the war. Peter proposed which the sport to Trumpkin, Edmund and the Repichi, but against Caspian, Susan and Lucy advised. They strike the Telmarine castle, but the Caspian spoils the plan by failing his teacher. Learning that Miraz killed his father and tries to get the truth from his uncle, ordering and the place to their peasants northwest to the Susan shock. Peter still ordered the attack. The castle is breached by crossbowmen and the over half number and the rest reset, and the result Miraz is crowned king and a huge army marches on the Aslan How. After the army returns, Nimkari convinces the Caspian participate in the ritual with the recruit, and the white witch of the inside of the wall eyes. The witch tries to convince Caspian of tree with a drop of blood. Peter, Edmund, Lucy and Trumpkin arrive. Edmund and the kills to Werewolf and the Trumpkin stables. Nimkari, who just is about to kill Lucy. Peter kills the hag, and then seeing Caspian being manipulated by the white witch, knows him down and faces the white witch. She quickly begins convincing Peter to release her before he can do anything. Edmund and the shutters the eyes, destroying the white witch. With the Tilmarin army arrives at the hall, the Caspian suggests the Peter fight Miraz in the duel to the death, the prize, and putting surrender in the order to buy time to Susan and Lucy to find the Aslan. Miraz, who cannot afford to look proudly in the face of his army, accept the challenges as the two combatants fight. Susan is forced and Lucy go on alone. They were being followed by Telmarine horsemen. She kills two, but one of the enemy cavalry once knows her down and almost kill her before the Caspian arrives and kills the soldiers. The two return together to the battle site. Soon Peter would Miraz but leave his fate the Caspian. At first it looked like Caspian is about to take his uncle life, but stabbed his sword into the ground, saying that Miza keep his life, but he is giving Narnian back to the Narnians. But one of the Miraz general suspense stabs with the Narnian arrow and blames two on the Narnians. The Tilmarine forces embrace then charge the herdsmen, but Caspian and his troops cause the earth beneath the enemy to collapse, and the Susan replies archers shoot them down, and the Peter lead a massive charge even though the cavalry and easy being killed. The Telmarine called in another garrish with by Peter hesitated to retreat from the massive force. The Tabish and the ordered prevent to expect, and they did eliminating the choice of return where to run and the surrounding possible. The Narnians forced into the incapable battle in which odds and against them. Lucy is still being chased until Aslan arrives and drives to Tilmarine. After they finish retuning each other, Aslan gently revokes Lucy for not seeing him sooner. She asks him why did not come to save his life to did on their last visit to Narnian. Aslan simply replies things never happened the same ways. He then awakens the tree to aid in the Narnians fight, destroying the troublers and driving to Telmarian to Braun River. He to summon the river god. He destroys the majority of the army as well as swallow suspense, and the survivors surrendered Aslan, his refugee who lost his tail in the battle, and proclaims and thus Caspian is ready to king. At the Telmarian castle, Aslan related that Telmarians original came from the earth who were one pride who found a portal of the Narnian. He offered them a chance to return the homeland to stay in Narnian. Using a breeze, he turned trees into a portal. Penpes and the Glozal as the first of the as soon as they step through, they vanish the some doubtful and fear that they may stop or their doom. The Pevensies offer the through, and the Peter gives Caspian his word and the symbolizes his right to throne. Caspian says he will wait for their next return, but Susan reveals a shocking secret he had. Peter cannot back as they had learned all they needed to know about him and the never. However, it returns smug and knowing the Narnian is good hand, and they make their goodbye. Susan even kisses Caspian goodbye, knowing they never meet again. The Pevensies walk through the portal back to the earth, and Edmund learned to his dismay and left the flashlight in the Narnian. Differences from the book. Note: this movie also takes some element from The Horse and His Boy. The film opens with Caspian flat. In the book, Trumpkin told the Pevensies of the Caspian and his story after they had been in care Preval for 2 days. In the film, while reading, Susan meet a boy who has an unquieted crush on her, and Peter gets himself an abdomen in her fight. There are no such occurrences in the book. In this book, children are waiting for the trains to take them to school at Country Railway Station. In the film, they are the London Underground. And the film, Queen Prince is not shown giving the birth. In the film, Miraz is not crowned king until after the height and read the book. He had been king for years, and he was crowned shortly after the secretly murdered his brother King Caspian act. In the film, our Pevensies and the leaves their shoes on the beach and explore the chair, and the Prevals reads barefoot. After puddling in the book, Lucy and Abdon are the only ones of the before foot, and Susan bretters them into the bringing their shoes with them. The apples are the care, and the Parvus runs red in the film. In the book, they are golden. The Pevensies decorated, they are in the ruins of the cures Parval much more quickly in the film than in the book. A case scene in added in the way to the dancing lawn. In the book, no mention is made of the Mistron fighting the Cassian and the other spaces walls and the block devils who fight for the White Witch and the Express mentioned as unavailable allies. Trumpkin tells Lucy that the trees related too far in the themselves they have been heard from the saints in the book. He does not believe in the dreads and Neds. Trumpkin is patriot and is being more captain of the authority in the film than book. In the book, the Pevensies turned back after they found the town of the Bruna and the bridge built over the font. In the film, they find the bridge still under construction by the Telman soldiers. In the book, the Pevensies met Aslan before they meet Caspian. In the film, the Narnians launched the attack of Miraz castle. In the book, at attack of the Miraz castle and considered by the idea was abandoned. In the film, Dr. Cornelius is arrested and thrown in the prison by Miraz and Caspian fight and restored by the captain during the attack on the castle. In the book, Dr. Cornelius escaped the castle shortly after helping Caspian to fail. In the film, by Dr. Cornelius tells Caspian the Miraz killed his father after Caspian rescues him from the prison. In the book, Dr. Cornelius reveals his secret to Caspian when helping him to escape. In this film, quickly punished Mars is unaware of her husband's schemes to get the throne and is much more sympathetic character, which the book was strict and the cruel as Miraz, though it's never mentioned whether the knew of his murdering his brother and his plans to kill Caspian. In the film, Caspian blows Susan and during his fight after the felling his horse and outside the Trufflet Hall book in the home. In the book, blew at the Aslan after the meeting the Narnian. Caspian is knocked at the Nipkariko during the fight. In the film, in the book, he was knocked at a tree branch. In the film, the first Narnian Caspian meets only the Truff Hunter and the Nipkarif, visiting the book it almost Trumpkin. In the film, Trumpkin is captured by the Telmarine soldier who had chased Caspian in the wood when the inverts and Caspian fight. In the book, he was captured on his journey to Care Parivel. In the book, at Aslan, however, Nipkarif and the huge warfare and the preparing of the Ruchel shaman in the White Witch and directed Tristan to Caspian, who has unaware to what were they about to do when Peter and Abdenham arrive the Trumpkin and time to stop. In the film, Caspian and the first goes along with the Trutel and the White Witch apparition and the man tramping Caspian and the Peter before being destroyed by Abdenham and Lucy Hall also to stop the reaction. In the film, Caspian meets all of the Pevensies before the arriving at Aslan. In the book, he only met the Peter, Abdenham and Aslan. How did meet Sasan and the Lucy until after the battle over. Susan never fight in the book. Only Peter, Abdenham and Caspian fought in the Susan and Lucy strayed and Aslan helped into the restored Narnian to in the form of glory. In the book, Glozal and killed Miraz, who is the film in the suspense and kill him in the book suspense in the depicted by the Peter, but in the film he is finished by the river and God it is instead gorgeous in the depicted by Peter. In the book, Glozal fat is unknown while the film is survives and the first Almaran to grow the dode in the year. In the book, River and was released to after the bridge was destroyed. In the film, River and God destroyed the bridge and Aslan wake him. Caspian nurse is not seen. The film is in the mentioned and it was Dr. Cornelius who told the Caspian the stories of the Narnian. In the film, Caspian formed in the attraction of the Susan, which result is Susan kissing Caspian goodbye before the Pevensies. And in the book, however, Caspian was never attracted to Susan, or did he never kiss him for the only met briefly. In the film, Peter gives Caspian his word to keep before the Pevensies leave. In the book, he was given Susan born. He has booked to Pevensies changed back into the school clothes before they went back. In the film, clothes appear to the change by magic, leaving it unclear how to Abdenham managed to leave his torch and Nornian. In the book, during the transition back to England, the Pevensies and the Telmarian and leaving for their arms to the other shoulders on the formed line. In the movie, the Telmarians and the Pevensies walked through a slant door in the air without forming line of any sort. How Disney Chronicles Narnian franchise went from 750 million smash to box office bomb in 3 years. Disney Chronicles of Narnian movie franchise had an incredible start at the box office, but the very next movie was a box office bomb. 2005, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is a movie adaptation of the incredible popular C.S. Lewis novel of the same name. The book is one of the most iconic fantasy novel of the 20th century and its first book of the Chronicles Narnian series, which is made up of the 7. Disney adapted the movie with the attention of it being and the studio answer to Warner Bros. And the phenomenal successful Harry Potter. Harry Potter was a movie franchise. The first movie of the planned film franchise was a huge success and a promising sign of things to come. The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe made the unbelievable $745 million worldwide via box office mojo, while the movie had a budget of a bloated $180 million. That the gross profit in the still more than impressive. The movie established Disney new franchise, and the many people thought that the follow-up Prince Caspian would be impossible to fail, but that's exactly what happened. By time the sequel, The Views of the Dawn Theater arrival in the 2010, and interested in the franchise and completely gone, and 4 of the 7 planned movie were left unproduced. Why Prince Caspian box office so much lower than The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe? While The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe was a huge success with in its $745 million gross, the Prince office and the Prince Caspian box office performance was a disaster. The 2008 movie made $418 million worldwide, which would generally be a success for most other movie. Not only it's $300 million less than in predecessor, however, but the movie and an inflated budget of the $225 million. There are several factors which Prince Caspian massively underperformed compared to the 2005 movie. The most obvious factor by the Prince Caspian failed, like the Chronicle of Narnia adaptation, was its huge dip in quality. The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe had the magic, whispering and the excitement that's the typically of fantasy movie, but the Prince Caspian was severely lacking in through areas, which led to worse audience reception and the Rotten Tomatoes score at 150 minutes, and the movie is also long in the tooth. And while The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is only 7 minutes shorter, Prince Caspian feels longer due to its dual tone. Prince Caspian also faced major competition at the box office at the vast facing of against Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Iron Man. This was a time when Disney did not own Marvel Studio, and when Iron Man was not a popular superhero character, Disney likely through the movie was not threat, but Iron Man became a surprise hit. However, the most detrimental factor, as the Disney expected by movie successful slowly based on The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Audiences simply did not have to end up good will for the series of the sport to underwhelming movie. How Prince Caspian box office failed Disney final Narnian movie. Through Prince Caspian made a more than its production budget, taking into account to movie theater of the tickets and sales and marketing, the movie would have still led theaters around the $100 million in the red. Despite Prince Caspian being a box office bomb, Disney will still ahead with the third movie in the franchise, The Views of the Dawn Trader in 2010. However, Disney made an even bigger mistake with the prequel. As a clear reaction of the Prince Caspian underperformance, Disney stepped back in the sequel, giving a budget of $140 million, $85 million less than its predecessor, and but much less care and the effort into the which further dumped into the franchise. This decision worked at the net profit standpoint, as the movie was actually made as a much money Prince Caspian at the box office. However, with The Views of the Dawn Trader, the series and finally entered Rotten territory, sitting at 50% of Rotten Tomatoes. If Disney made other movie, The Chronicle of Narnia franchise of this quality, the audience would likely have reached up. The fourth movie, The Magical Nephew, and the announced in 2011, but it is seemingly entered and development hell until the studio lost the right to the IP. How Netflix robot can avoid Disney Chronicles of the Narnian mistake? The right to the C.S. Lewis novel and belong to Netflix, and the streaming services has not wasted the time in the developing the Chronicle of Narnian movies. While detailed, the still spare in confirmed that the Barbie director and the Greta Gerwig has already signed on the Netflix Chronicles of Narnia robotic, and having a visionary filmmaker at the helm of on the such ambition and understanding could grateful help the movie series. Based on what has been reported about the Barbie growing clearly as now to play an established IP strength by the learning into the make it unique and the while modernization if today audiences, this is exactly what the Chronicle of Narnia series needs. The Chronicle of Narnia has also never the particularly strong female character, which might have the left movie audience member unsatisfied, but the director of the Lady Bird and the Little Movement at the helm, the Netflix movie could fix them. We cannot just drop it now. Why Prince Caspian accent changed in the Chronicles of Narnia movie. Trailing off with the third installment in 2010, the Chronicles of Narnia movies are untreated and but hardly flashless, and the some strange creative choices possible contributed to the initial movie franchise early end. After the stunning debut of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in the 2005, filmmaker quickly got work on the following book, which made casting British actor and the Baroness in the title character Prince Caspian destined to become the new king of the Narnian. Prince Caspian drastically changed the book's plot, and this is where the movie started to see a poorer reaction. Prince Caspian says the four Pevensie siblings return to Narnia to find 2,000 years have passed and the land has been invaded by the Tilmaran people with the brutal king now the power. They set out the help to kings outstand the nephew reclaim and the throne to restore the kingdom, and the Narnian Netflix Narnian robotic and the will more the likely to be adapted this story eventually with the Greta Gerwig putting her spin on it. Ben Barn with still compelling in the role. However, Narnian is good hand. Wine Gerwig is a director probably would not make the same nonsensical choices concerning Caspian. Bean Barnes was against dropping Prince Caspian accent in the Voyage of the Dawn Trader. Caspian actor saw the problem with this change. The Talmarine population from the which Caspian hails in the loosely characterized as Mediterranean and the brown bat adapted by Spanish accent of the Prince Caspian movie. However, when the return of the Voyage of the Dawn Trader, it was told by the new director to return to his early English accent a choice, but the band and a guess after a week Caspian is suddenly inexplicably British band revealed in the live stream with Narnian Web in 2020. The fought a change but eventually failed. After the second film, a new director Mitchell adapted and took over and said, I don't think that Almarai need to speak with that accent and maybe just use through an accent. So in the third film, I just had to go back to using my own accent. Let it be less be known for the record than I did fight tooth and the nail to keep the accent, because I said we have started with it, we cannot just drop it now. Is about character. The Telmarine accent in the Prince Caspian were already regarded as somewhat jarring without there being a clear hard reason for them. However, Barnes spotted that the abrupt shift and be even more distributive and had already established a certain version of this character in the movie universe, letting him use and is now the accent and begun with might have been to right choice, avoiding potential errors with his adapted accent, but he was already said and done by the time of the Voyage of the Dawn Trader, the movie that would ultimately end the Norian first cinematic run. The Prince Caspian accent change in the Chronicles of Narnia movie. The new director seemed to want to return to English Narnian. Brains suggest that Voyage of the Dawn Trader directed Mitchell Apted simply thought that the accent was not necessary, which is was not as for by the deliberately choice to break the movie continued, and this is more debated according to IMDb under the incredible regarded as goof section. It is done purposefully is the filmmaker who is no longer needed to match Caspian accent to the other Telmarine people accent change over time in the real life as well. It was suggested the universe Caspian accent shifted the more time they spent around the Narnian who are already seeming British, while Caspian accent would have to realistically change somewhat. It was lived among people who spoke the different same, unlike that it would have been completely eradicated and would steal the sum of his old accent after only 3 years. IMDb touch upon the silent point that it is less thematic reason in the third movie to associate the Caspian with the foreign population of the Telmarine at the point of the fully expected the Narnian king, and the remaining Telmarine have faded into the background character status, and the director likely wanted to connect Caspian to the rest of the cast. The Narnian's movie Telmarine accent as an odd choice, but the Baran is right about continuity. It maybe was not the right choice, but they should have helped the ground. Barney also discussed with the Narnian Web the journal of the audition and the Telmarine actor being told the Spanish accent, which is the character speak English, and the many of the actor which actually Italian. Barons mentioned that his only real reference of a Spanish accent is spoken English in the movie at the time was Inigo Monita in the Princess Bridge, on the which based on the accent it was ultimately a superficial choice by the maid of the sake of associating the Telmarine with consequences which might have the work, but it has the research but the historical counterparts and the more cast actor and actually had this accent. However, Barnes is ultimately right that the change in accent was to determine to last movie, illustrating candid of the carelessness of the part of the franchise overall because the various installment of the Chronicle of Narnia has largely standout adventure. There is some of the different director bring on their vision and change the plot how the kill. Perhaps that the needed to remain consistent was the characterization. Lucy, Gorgeous and Holland Abramant's Candida Canis acted the live up and the naturally after the previous movie but too many tonal change and the introduced to Caspian story. Narnian's Prince Caspian star gave heartwarming advice to Greta Gerwig's remark cast. Bean Barnes, known for playing the noble Prince Caspian in the Chronicles of Narnia film series, has shared heartfelt advice of the cast of the Greta Gerwig's upcoming Narnian remarks. The Barbie director is set to the adapted C.S. Lewis' beloved children's novel, which made their first big screen debut in 2005 with Andrew Adamson's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe sent to the countryside to escape World War II siblings. Peter Susan Advent and the Lucy Pevensie discover a wardrobe that severs the gateway to a magical realm. The Gatherings and Led Narnian is set for the release of November 26, 2026. Advice that I got at the time, which has just enjoyed the adventure. I don't expect a cast coming into the new and kids to have grown up necessarily with the Narnian book. They may have to for me and it was special for that reason. I was stepping into the something that I knew for the big 8 years old and I really value and appreciated. One of my skill and an actor, I think it was really enjoyed the experience of making it for the being a New Zealand, being in the program and the being on these incredible sets and the being around incredible people. My best friend in the world I made on that film. They should just enjoy the experience of actually making the rest of the will be it was and it fall into the place and what not it the captured people heart and the argument and the what not long and you are presented in the moment and giving it your then that's all you and really offer anyone. So I would not design of offer my advice to how to appropriate to the character of anything. What been Barnes advice to Greta Gerwig's Narnia means for a project and ambition of Netflix, the Chronicles of Narnia and Barnes advise apologize the importance of the Christmas and the creative process is called to enjoy the adventure aligns perfectly with the themes of the discovery and the childlike wonder that defines C.S. Lewis books. This perspective is especially meaningful for a cast of likely include younger actors stepping in the iconic roles like a Pevensie siblings, many of whom may be encountering Narnians fantasy world of the mythical beast taking animals and the sensitive witch of the first time. The actor himself continued to explore Outlands and the world with the Netflix fantasy series Shadow and the Bone. This advice is particularly significant given the high of stake of the adaptation of the Chronicle of Narnia for a new area. Previous Chronicle of Narnia adaptation have only nobody failed as the Lewis sparring universe moved further away of the previous sibling. Nonetheless, Netflix aims to avenge the franchise and with a bold theatrical first release date with the IMAX and the Gerwig's distinct creative vision as the detailed context. The robot remained relative unknown. The director could also take a wrote and adapted the Magician Nephew Less View and the Narnian prequel. Our take on the Ben Barnes' heart-wearing words. Netflix cast should embrace the magic of the C.S. Lewis. Barnes' reflection the perfectly embody and the hope to see the Netflix the Chronicles of Narnia robotics a celebration of wonder discovery and the heartful storytelling. While it may be too old to return to Narnian bars, the perspective it is knows bringing Lewis' magical world to life with the Gerwig in the helm. The Chronicle of Narnia remark has the potential of reimagining the beloved children's story in the way that will fresh to faithful if they have choose to embrace it. The Chronicles of Narnia is a fantasy franchise based on the 7-book series written by C.S. Lewis between 1950 and 1956. The series is set in the magical world of the Narnian with children from the world and the transported for the fulfilled prophecies and the battle with the evil restored peace under the guardians of the Aslan mystical line. The franchise has been multiple adaptations including a BBS television series in the late of 1980s, 3 major Hollywood films between the 2005 and 2010, and upcoming robotic by Netflix which has generated significant adaptation and the franchise beloved for its rich logical storytelling blending and the Christmas themes with epic fantasy element. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian Review. Prince Caspian is much better than the first Narnian film. Let's get straight to the point. If you liked the first Chronicles of Narnian movie, you will like this one even better. For some I reason never wrote a review of the first one, but it had. I probably would have to given it a dope and full point of the lore than Prince Caspian. On the other hand, if you are a big fan of the book upon which this film is based, you are going to the tone because I divides heavily from the story. I would not have to know that myself, but my daughter reread the book just recently and found herself pulled in the two directions regarding the movie on site on in the she thought it was very good, but she was perturbed over the inclusion of entire sequences that never appeared in the book, while parts of the original story were completely absent from the film. Prince Caspian started right off this much darker feel than the last film, actually reminding me of the Harry Potter and the film with the dark castle environment with witness and the PG fashion, the birth of the child and the announcement to the father who appears to be in a king is not quite that has a son. The nature of this lord, not a king, become immediately apparently when the order the execution of the Prince Caspian, who is only saved with the help of his long-time professor Caspian, is sent into the wood which legend and the superstition says is populated by the all kinds of scared creatures. Eventually Caspian runs in the same disguise of the Narnian and the long thought extend and calls upon the king of old for help. Of course the king of old turned on not be very old at all, but are the interpreted young uns, and the first film pattern oldest in the happy that have been away from the Narnian for years and has not adjusted well of life in the real world. If you are recall the lived on the entire lifetime the Narnian during the first film and the returned at their original ages. Meanwhile, Susan next oldest in the just trying to come to team, and the fact that all never return to Narnian and get with her. Once they return, they slowly discover that over 1000 years have passed since the left, and the things have obviously changed dramatically. Unknown to them, they will be their task to bring the Narnian out of hiding and back to flourishing civilization. I thought that the Bean Barnes and the Prince Caspian did not okay job in the role and adaptation by the nothing right to home about. I think the start of the group of the heroes in 12 years and the but much younger looking George and Holland and the Lucy for the week of the point is the most important character. Peter, I feel like that there is something bit as a vanilla and about William Mistress performance which the takes more for the film. I say the thought were more believable and the engaging than he was in the last movie. However, there's a great of the sporting character tapped by the Peter Dacklang and the administrator Trumpkin chase little guys with a very commanding presence and the top to pull off. I have predating blast and played great violence and the Lord Donald for some folk of the film may move to slow time, but I thought was fine. Really a lot of character development growth on this, and the final battle sequence in the really demand cool on the side and the road I have seen the express on their side. I was surprised that this received a GP rating. I think it appears in the pretty hard of PG, but the despite of sword fight and the better not drop of blood maybe by small hair and the there was not seen. All in all that it was quite good but no staller a big improvement over the first and the well through checking out if you are fan of the first one and the parent looking for the grand adventure film you can bring the kids. You will have to see if it does enough the guarantee another film based on the book series by C.G. Lewis. Prince Caspian takes round at North American box office. Beyond visitor the Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian dominated the North American box office over the weekend. Thought its estimated opening gross of $56.6 million was short of the most production. And the Paramount's Iron Man and the Fox What Happens in the Voyage held up well in third and the second weekend respectively, but the Warner Speed Racer lost more power after the disappointing start last week. Prince Caspian, produced by the Walt Disney Studio and the Walden Media, opened in 3,929 cinemas and easily topped in the box office chart average on the $14,398 per theaters. However, the film's fantasy sequel had been expected to beat the $55.6 million opening that achieved in December 2005 by The Lion and the Witch and the World War and the first film based on C.S. Lewis' Narnian children books. Some for this and the even suggested that no with new world wide release competition rated and the PG rating. Caspian, which got mostly positive review, which opened more than $80 million for the weekend. In the event, in the big budget epic directed once again by the Andrew Adamson, with the British up and comer Ben Burnham joining the cast in the title role, and may have suffered from a long running time stronger than expected holder and the competition and the fact that the school holidays have not yet started. With the new Indian joins film the opening in Thursday, Caspian may now struggle to equal the $291.7 million domestic take of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which displays strong legs over its winter holiday season. After the 2 weeks on top, Paramount's Iron Man fell 39%, $32.2 million from the 4,154 cinemas as for an average the $7,510 million, and the purchase to comic book blockbuster domestic total the $222.5 million. Fox romantic comedy What Happens in the Village, which piped and the speech racer for the second place last week, slid 31% interest second weekend or $13.8 million from the 3,255 theaters, average $4,254 for a total of $4.3 million. In second week, the weekends wandered under the performing Speed Racer has been 59% to $7.6 million from the 3,606 theater, average the $2,120 for a $24.4 million total. And the Tom Cruise and the show's staying power in the weekend universe, Baby Mama was down to 26.2% in its fourth week to $4.6 million for a total of $47.3 million. Sorry, Maid of Honor dropped to 44.6% in its third weekend to $4.5 million for a $33.7 million total. And the Universal Forgotten Sarah Marshall was of 33.9% in the fifth weekend to $2.5 million for a $55 million total. Overtakes the Visitor snacked in the stop to dropping the 6% in its sixth week to the gross $6,87,000 for a $3.4 million total dollar. Overlet was down the back and the height of the summer season approach in the total weekend stop to the film 27% less than the step and the corresponding weekend last year. The only word released next week, the Memorial Day holiday weekend in the Paramounts, and the long-awaited sequel Andrian and the Joins to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, with Horion and the Ford returning in the title of the director Steven Stable and the Sia Bioge also starting. Estimated top 10 on North American May 16, 18, 2008 film Disney dished as a total date. The Chronicles of the Narnians, Prince Caspian, Buena Visita, WDMPI $56.6 million. Second, Iron Man Paramount VPI Warriors $3.2 million, $22.5 million. Number 3. What Happens in Vegas Fox $13.8 million, $40.3 million. Number 4. Speed Racer Warner Bros. VPW $7.6 million, $23.4 million. Number 5. Baby Mama Universe $4.6 million, $47.3 million. Number 6. Maid of Honor Sony $33.7 million. Number 7. Forgetting the Sarah and the Marshall $2.5 million, $55.1 million. Number 8. Horden and the Kumar Escape from the by New Land Warner and the $1.8 million, $33.9 million. The Forbidden Kingdom and the Toves Mansions in the $50.3 million. 10. The Visitor overtake K2 until $6,87,000, $3.4 million. Caspian rules the US box office. As predicted, the second in the Chronicles of Narnia series, Prince Caspian was tops at the US box office this weekend, but it was not the glorious return that was predicted, where the estimated had been somewhere between the $780 million. The film managed 560 the film managed $56.6 million. That's now a small amount, but it is almost $10 million behind the first film, which had not the gross over $290 million in the US and the nearly $745 million worldwide, and give Caspian a very tough run at the getting close to its predecessor numbers, with Indiana Jones opening this week. A film going for the same family demography and the Kung Fu Panda 2 weeks later, it is going to struggle to get anywhere close to the first film. With Caspian the only only big a new release of the week, Iron Man, and the cleaned up again its third week on the release. The comic book film grabbed another $31.2 million to the take its total to $22.5 million, making it the biggest of the year so far. What happens is Viaj also stayed strong, dropping only 31.3% in its second week and adapting a further $13.9 million that put at the $40.3 million, which means it shows it is a $35 million budget. The story was not got full speed race but continues to get sadly down the chart, and after the weeks the Wachowski's cartoon adaptation has managed just $29.8 million, $7.6 million of that this weekend. Foreign box office is not looking good either in its UK opening. It took a paltry and so it has the great start of the summer of the Warner Bros. What imagine the Dark Knight and the might appear of the some who's later in the blockbuster season. The big question for the next week will be just how to of the box office dollar will and die hover up. Check back on the Monday for the full number. For the complete box office chart, see Box Office Mojo. Prince Caspian is king at box office. The Chronicles of Narnia and Prince Caspian dethroned Iron Man as ruler at the box office, pulling down $56.6 million according to the studio estimate Sunday. The Walt Disney Co. action sequels took in the less domestical in its opening weekend than the Chronicles of Narnia and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which sold $56.6 million in the North America in its debut weekend in December 2005. Caspian also remarked in $20.7 million overseas. But Disney expects the PG-rated movie based on the CG as C.S. Lewis fantasy series to reach high through the comic Memorial Day weekend. The first Narnian tale grossed $745 million worldwide over its theatrical run. This is film that we think is going to play summer long, and it's go nothing at school holidays. In front of it, said Marcaz and the Zorad, president of the Walt Disney Studio Motion and the Picture Group. Disney is in pre-production on the third of the series, The Chronicles of Narnia and Voyage of the Dawn Treaders, set the release in the summer of 2010. Marvel Studio Iron Man slipped to second place after the weeks at the number 1 with $31.2 million, bringing its domestic total of $222.5 million. Paul Dragbagdian, at the president of Tracking Film Media by the Numerius LLC, said the fluid superhero flick in the holding and appeal better than the Spider-Man 3 did the previous May. Iron Man continues to holiday very well, he said, and the definitely cutting into the audience across the board. The 20th Century Fox comedy The Happened is Viaj, starting the Samraz Diaz and the Ashton Kutcher, came in the third with $13.9 million in the second weekend. Its domestic total reached $40.3 million, well above its $35 million budget. It's clearly the comedy non-film movie in the remarkable place right now. The said Caris Aronas and the Fox senior vice president Warner Bros. Disappointing the speed race is slow to $7.6 million for the fourth place, driving in $29.8 million over 2 weeks. The studio said it was not ready to call the game over the which was Brothers and the movie, which cost $120 million to make. The Jeff Goldstein, Warner Bros. Executive Vice President of Distribution, said next weekend and the do right of the movie. Over the film, the acclaimed drama The Visitor, the craft in the 10th place at the box office with $687,000. The distribution picked up the Indian and the film about the professor of the discovery the couple living in the little US and the New York apartment in the Toronto Film Festival for the reported $1 million. It has grossed $3.4 million so far. It's good to know how to you did know how to have to special effect in your movie to make money, said the Overtake Film senior vice president Edmund Keane. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which received a somewhat and the hum action to the Cannes Film Festival on the Sunday, whipped its way into the theaters on Thursday. Greta Gerwig's Narnia delayed to 2027. The adaptation of C.S. Lewis' The Magician's Nephew of Netflix was originally settled for the Thanksgiving. You are going to have to wait a bit longer to visit Narnia. The new adaptation of C.S. Lewis' The Magician's Nephew, written and directed by Oscar Monier, Greta Gerwig, was originally meant to debut in IMAX theaters that Thanksgiving, followed by a global rollout on the Netflix for Christmas. Now the movie will be released in IMAX and while globally in theaters, according to the official release on 12, 2027. Before the debuting on Netflix on April 2, 2027, sneak preview on the IMAX screen will begin on Feb 10, 2027. Narnian pairs newcomers David Magna and Beatrice Campbell with the all-star cast with the includes Emma Mackey, Carly, Mulligan, Kobna, Holbrook, Smith, Daniel Carrick, and Martial Strabe. The original novel was published on May 2, 1955, which means it turns 71 tomorrow. Working with the Netflix to bring this film to life has been extraordinary, and IMAX continues to be incredible partner. I cannot wait for the people to see the film in the theaters on Feb 12 and on the Netflix on the April 2. Garrick said is the statement. Garrix continued, I was a child when I first read The Magician Nephew and I fell in love with the gorgeously, improbably with the completely brilliant concept of comic line signing the world of the Narnian to life. I did not know that would grow up to make film, but a universe built out of the music, an idea that always lived in my heart. It is the honor of lifetime, but asked to imagine into the being because of C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of Narnia. I believed in magic and hidden world of the adventure. I believed that anywhere could be in charge and the anyone could be swept into the epic. The wonder and awe was available to everyone, even ordinary people like me. It transformed me. IMAX released a statement as well, which read from the outside, we got involved with Darian, the magician nephew, spot Greta Gerwig, and see her vision realized to the falls in the IMAX. The film delay until 2027 creates an opportunity to give Narian as expanded world release with a full theatrical window. The spotted Greta and Netflix pursuing the opportunity and were released pleased to MX could have facilitated. We have too many people in many places, and the possible can experience what Greta is creating with his special film, particularly in its excluded debuted in the IMAX was not meant to see. Narnian, the Magician Nephew is produced by Mark Gordon, Army Parcel, Vincent Cybersmith, and the George, and executive produced by Patricia Vichens and the Doves and the Jormans Malvin Edmonds. For the CS Lewis Estates, it was co-produced by the Christmas Trees. It's incredible movie to see to how deeply Greta Gerwig to embrace C.S. Lewis world and the infused Narnian and the Magician Nephew with the heart and the genuine love for the story. The C.S. Lewis company said, we are excited to audience everywhere in experience her vision and to share the magic of Narnian with a whole new generation. The Chronicle of Narnian, The Lion Witch and the Worldwide, and the release in 2005 by Walt Disney Picture and Walden Media, meant to understanding the epic fantasy series for the Disney. It is that the hit making $740 million globally and was followed the a sequel, The Chronicle of Narnia, Prince Caspian, 2008. That film grows considerably less, racking up the $419 million worldwide and the cost considerably more to $25 million compared to the $180 million of the first time. That led Walden Media to the partner with the 20th Century for 2010. The Chronicle of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which is for $15 million globally, the lowest grossing of that trilogy. Gorgeous Narnian, The Magician Nephew will be in theaters on Feb 2027 and the Netflix April 2, 2027. When will Narnian be released on Netflix? Sneak review in the IMAX will begin to February 10 with the global world release 2 days later, and the film will drop on the Netflix on April 2, 2027. It is a new world. In a statement, an IMAX rep said, from outside, we got involved with Narnian, the Magician Nephew, to spot Greta Gerwig, and the C version released to full first in IMAX. The film delay until 2027 creates an opportunity to give Narnian an expanded wide release with a full theatrical window. We support Greta and Netflix to purchasing the opportunity, and the released IMAX could help facilitate. We have to people in many places possible to experience what Greta is creating and the creating with the special film, particularly in its exclusive debut in IMAX. It was the meant to be seen. What we know about the film. The film is an adaptation of The Magician Nephew, although it was the 6 books published in the 7 novels series by C.G. and the Lewis. The storybooks place 1000 years before the events. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Lewis later experienced his performance that reader should begin The Magician Nephew, that they read the series, the prequels, and the deals with the creation of Narnia and the first human of the travel to the world. The story concerned to children. and the Digor and the Puli, who are transported to different world by magic rings created by Digor uncle. They are accidentally awaken the evil White Witch. Daniel Craig is playing Uncle Andrew with Emma Mackey as the White Witch, Carrie Mulligan as Mabel Kirk and the Devil Macna, and the Beatrice Campbell as Digor and the Puli. Meryl Streep is also part of the cast, and it is being rumored with she will voicing Aslan. As last, the action adaptation of Lewis' fantasy series starting with the Chronicle of Narnia, The Lion with the Witch and the Wardrobe. The first film grossed $745 million worldwide, but the sequel is the Chronicle of Narnia, Prince Caspian, made significantly less than $419 million. And other lackluster sequel, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, seemed to spell the end of the Narnian franchise. About the Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. The Chronicle of Narnia, Prince Caspian is a 2008 fantasy film directed by Andrew Adamson and based on the novel of the same name by C.S. Lewis. The film is the sequel to The Chronicle of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and the star Ben Barnes and the Prince Caspian. 1,300 years have passed since King Caspian X left Narnia, and now his here Prince Caspian must take up arms with the four Pevensie children to bring space back to the lands of the Narnian. Together they fight creatures that have taken over the kingdom while trying to restore its former glory and save their home from destruction. Along their journey, they meet magical creatures such as centaurs, ganitars, monitors, talking animals, and dwarfs who help them on their quest for justice. And the Chronicle of Narnia, Prince Caspian also featured an impressive cast including Peter Declank, Game of the Thrones as a Trumpkin, Varchis Davish, Harry Potter as Nipgarif, William Mosley, and the roles as Peter Pevensie, Anna Peoplewell, and the Regent's son Pevensie, Skander Canis, Voyage of the Dawn Trader, and the Edmund Pevensie, George Henry, Little Woman as Lucy Pevensie, and Liam Nassim, and that is reprising his role as Aslan for the first movie, Prince Caspian, who must with the general position review of the critics praising its performance and the visual effect, but there were some criticisms because of it is darker than the predecessor. It was moderate success at the box office, grossing $419 million worldwide against the budget of $225 million, making it one of the highest grossing film of 2008. The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian's locations. The Chronicle of Narnia, Prince Caspian is a fantasy adventure film shot across multiple Central European countries. Most of the production occurred in the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and the Lithuania, and the other location included Australia and Croatia. It is not wonder this region was appealing to the filmmaker, as the stunning backwards of the Central European given as a peak and to fantastic setting of the movie. Travel to this region can expect natural beauty like rolling hills as a medieval castle featured in the various scenes during filmmaking, and the castle Czech Cormolux in the Bohemia and the Czech Republic, and the Usurped castle in Prague offer perfect and the setting for an incredible atmosphere where making a romantic getaway or drive to the Victor Furtherman and the Lithuania, and the Kenneth College, who was the center filming location for the Prince Caspian home castle of the Kier Parvel. This impressive structure dates back to the 14th century, and it was exploring why you are there, considering the picturesque landscape and the remarkable earthquake and the trip of Central European inspired by the Chronicle of Narnia. And Prince Caspian would be highly rewarding for any travel looking for a royal adventure. The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian 2008 review. I must admit that I took my quite a while to write a review of the 2000 cinematic installment of the Chronicles of Narnia saga. This second installment, Prince Caspian, tells the story of our Pevensie's children return to Narnia to aid to Prince Caspian. Ben Barnes in his struggle for the through against the corrupt uncle King Miraz. I tried to think of the something different about his chapter in the compared to the first, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but it corrupted to my reaction to this movie seemed more or less the same as the 2005 release. And what does they say about the feeling about the Prince Caspian? Honestly, I thought it was a solid and the entertaining film that both children and the adult fan of C.S. Lewis saga might enjoy. This is all I can really say. There was nothing really unique about it Like many other adaptations of literary work, Prince Caspian did not faithfully follow its literary conception, and the considering that I have never read any of Lewis's works, I was not particularly distributed by this, and this only reason I am aware of the differences between the literacy and the cinematic version in this internet. Like the previous movie, the cast of the pre solid and the actor of Portyard and the Pevensie children returning of the sequel due to the rapid going in the children in journey work on the script began before the line the witch and the world brought and the release to say filming could again before the actors and the grew told for the parts. William Mossoli, Anna Popplewell and the Sikandar Canis and the George Henley Lewis and gave all solid the slightly uninspiring the performances as the four sibling whereas Kenaz and go to chance to Advent and the Prevents and the worst in the previous film mostly portrayed a slightly darker side of the oldest brother Peter, who is dissatisfaction with the being back in the England and the produce boorish and personality. Perhaps I should perhaps in the better brushness and we had seen hunted by those handing of the Advent in the first film and allowed to flourish in this film. It took military failure against the mean village to give him a boot in the set or improve the personality. On the other hand, Advent and seemed remarkable change for the better in the film. One critic and describe him being the firm hand solo. I would so agree. Expect Advent came off his more mature and the intelligent than Hannah Solly, Anna Popplewell, and the convenience producer Douglas Grashman and the law to Susan to appear in the movie Major Battle because she feared the character came offered to positive Levis novel. Many fans of the novel were applied by this, and being literacy fan of the saga, it did not bother me at all. At least they gave her something to do. Of all the Pevensie sibling, George Henry Lucy seemed to have the change the least, although it seems less tolerant the better brushness and the she was to Edmund Darker's side in the first film. British actor and the Barnes portrayed the title of the Prince Caspian of the Telmarin with as much comparison and the four actor of the Protead. The Prevences perhaps the seemed a little more competent that his younger co-star in the acting. Like I could not seen anything remarkable about the performance. Proteas Caspian evil uncle and the Talmaran falls a ruler the Miraz who actor Sergio Casliot in the made a very effective villain and the looked talented swatches memorable Portiat as the white witch who way the briefly returned to bring a much needed spark in the middle of the story. It must be honest, her brief appearance was probably the best scene in the film, but no, even the Swinton and the spectacular appearance could not overhead what I feel the was best performance in the movie, namely that of the Peter Danklank and the Trumpkin as the Sonic Rat. The Dolphins as really enjoyed the sharp and the causing Kate take the by Doffer is a scapegoat of the idea of Aslan and the magic. As much I enjoyed the Prince Captain, I must admit that I found the more remarkable than the first film, as though I found it difficult to maintain interest in the film. First half is switch back and the forth between Caspian film like the murderous uncle and the Pevense's arrival in the Narnian directed Andros Admission seemed to lock George and the Lucy and the Peter Jackson talented the seamless transition between the multiple story and the lines within the film. But when the Pevenses and the captain finally the movie seemed to discover its peace and follow forward, the heroes will fated attempt to attack the Miraz and the final showdown. There are worse scenes that the game are scenes of, namely the attack of the trees and the river and upon the Telmarin army. It seems at the either Admission and Lovis and the Tolkien movement, the attack of the trees especially reminded me of the end attack upon Asgard in the 2002 movie Lord of the Rings. The two towards Prince Caspian was not greatest movie I had seen during the summer 2008, not in that anything unique, but it can overcome the fact it is not an exact adaptation of C.S. Lewis novel, or he might find the movie quite entertaining to watch. I highly recommended it. Movie review Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian Mitchell's review. If you have read my review for any length of time, you will know that one of many film bases is an extreme dislike of talking animals in my movie. Generally, they creep me out and take me right off the experience. The expectation of the rule was the Chronicles of Narnia. I did not think that was perfect film, but I liked it well enough to go and read off all the book. I always thought that Prince Caspian was a pretty weak book. It was too short and the Luke character Prince Caspian Caspian, Bean Barnes, and Winnie Little, Hash Dollar, Hash, who did not much it in. But it book's biggest sin, with I did not really delve in the what must have been like of the Pevensie kids, Hailey King, Peter Pevensie, mostly Edmund Pevensie, and the just Skender Canis, Lucy Pevensie, the valiant Henley, and the Susan Pevensie, Anna Papelway, and the adjusters to idea that were the adult king and the queen trapped as powerful 13, 16 years old children. The book makes and the opportunity to explore this dichotomy. What as the first see the Pevensie kid who see they are adjustment. Note well, Peter is getting into fight over the almost minus slight anti to random and perfect back, and that's beautiful. This being the movie, it's how to Pevensie family has become too close to each other and wise. In the first film, they were typically the dimensional kids, and the kids actor were clearly out of the element. Here, they are very self-aware and the self-assured of both actor and the characters. There are times where you can watch the movie, you can really see the duality of their personality. You get their yes, why they may look like it, they are truly the former great king and the queens they once won. Where it's near their eyes, it they move and they act. The kid could never had pulled the complexity of emotion of the first film, but they as if they were born to play these parts. The change in the abdomen and the suicide, and the most pronounced adamant in the bed and as calculating, worrying, and the do anything to perfect his family, especially his brother Peter. While Susan has grown to quality the fighter herself, the camera loves her and the directed. And Tudor Edmondson showcases the perfectly, especially during the sweeping battle when Susan breaks out of the arrows in hiring the beauty and the pleasure of watch. As far as the animal go, I had biggest concern of the noble mouse Rapicheep. I did not care of his character in the book, but has great in the film. If one of many animals and Emils, I think Shadows, Smith, and the Caspian work as well best the because the filmmaker choose to make Caspian never rather than Vanny, and the subtle change makes all the difference in the world. Caspian come across the stronger in the movie, more proof actor, and not much some less than happened to him. He has also involved the most opportunity time. I like to fact that the film really played at the revival between Peter and Caspian. In the book, Caspian just beat Peter everything without the complaining, the standing up himself. The Caspian calls Peter on the sometime arrogance. The writer Andrew Adamson screenplay, Christopher Moker screenplay, and the Stephen M.C. Feely took the best of C.S. Lewis' work and expanded it, make it better. It's a shame that the Peter and Susan would not be in the next film because they will be missed. Everything about the Prince Caspian is just right in the terms of scenography and the sports and the vision of tone broke, but hope to epic but animated while watching the battle scene, and the only thought going through my mind. So I was Harry Potter film in the 10th as good as was Bring as Assured and the Don't Trader. Book review: Prince Caspian by C.S. Lewis. Prince Caspian was the second Narnian book written by C.S. Lewis to the published. However, in the chronological reading order, it is actually book 4, and it is this order I am reading the series in. I think Prince Caspian might be my favorite book in the Chronicles of Narnia so far. I love the time travel aspect of this book, with hundreds, if it knows 1,000 years having passed since the Pevensies were kings and queens of Narnia. The country as they remember if no longer exists, the people having changed and the landscape having evolved with the passing of time, yet all things which made Narnia specially lives in Flocker and the memory. Lucy has always been my favorite, but Edmonds and the really has grown up. The lessons he learned in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe had the performed and the profound effect on his character. Will Peter and Susan are more adult and the children, which is reflected in their decision making. Them appear a little of step with the world they find themselves back. The name of the character were well chosen. Were not only they were sound like the reflected the character, but they were just simply awesome. A few example being the mouse, Rapicheep, the Constance, Glansos, and the Gained, Wim Weather, and the Dauphin Nipkarik. Again, I cannot see the parallel with the Tolkien's and written. I love they are friends and were part of the some written groups, and we have discussed the aspect of their book together. Yes, I disagree. I this installment, I was this small people can be brave and some of the world and or the world building fantastic element. There was a part that reminded me of the March of the Ants. There was only one part of the story I did not like, and I did not interrupt my the enjoyment of the book ability brief it when a group of schoolgirls at the side to mostly dumb prime to girls with fat legs, page 171, and the group of schoolboys who looked very like PGs with the meanwhile faces, page 172. The description mean unnecessary, mean, and the cruel, and appear to no just notification for it. The next book in the Chronicles of Narnia in the Voyage of the Dawn Trader, and must I say, I am really looking forward it after the enjoying Prince Caspian so much. My expectations have risen. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian Review. 1 year after the incredible events of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the King and the Queens of Narnia find themselves back in that way. Wonders William only they discover the more than 13 years have passed in the Narnian time. During their absence, the golden age of Narnia has become extinct. Narnia has been conquered by the Telmirain and now under the control of the evil King Miraz, who rules the land without mercy. The four children will soon meet the intrigued with new character Narnians rightful heir to the throne. The young Prince Caspian, who has been forced to hiding as Uncle Miraz plots to kill him to order to place his own newborn son on the throne. In 2025, Disney and Walden Media released the first installment of C.S. Lewis' beloved book series, The Chronicle of Narnia. The first story, entitled The Lion, the Witch, and the World, was a fantastic journey into the mystical place called Narnia, where four siblings helped rescue the land for an evil witch. By the end of the story, the kids had returned to their time in the London after spending roughly 10 years in the Narnia, only find their original home as they have never left. In 2008 sequel Prince Caspian, the children return a year later, the accidentally summoned only to find the hundreds of years and based in Narnian time, and the land was is desperate need of their help. Prince Caspian has a much different feel than the predecessor, showing the children as a plot more mature, while the Forceman, Big Mars, and the Witch much of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe were throwing. Prince Caspian has going for it, seeing the kids much more devoted to each other and looking for each other. While I wanted struggle, admit, and more than a couple occasion in the first time and the film in the highlights of this one, they alone makes the feel more adult. But directed Andrew Adamson also give this story a darker look visual. It is not the brighter time of the day visual color when the epic element battle ensues. Another battle in the middle of the film takes place in the dark of the night. Ella Lord of the Ring, Two Towers just feel like a much more mature Narnian telling than the first installment. Even the little Pevensie siblings, Lucy seems to have grown up a lot since the last adventure. What do less the adult feel of the film story at the violence, the Lion, the Witch, and our chief violence was the White Witch and the hard Norwegian creation minions. The time around we have teamed a strong actor, the convincing performance that make this much more like a peak period drama, the film or the fantasy, because a group of humans and the Telmirain and had taken over much of the Narnian. There are considerable more humans in the Narnian than the before. The Pevensies quickly jump in the action without the reluctant hesitation by the face in the film first, and it is not long before the kids and acting by horses once again, because the tone of this film is considerable darker and more serious. It is not surprising that whole lot more villains and the Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe, and the literary to the point where they had been thinking this already. I overheard a group of colleagues and the kids share this disbelief, and the film was only rated PG-C when the action begins with the sword swinging left and the right. The Pevensies and the other characters allies down their voices. Seldom we ever see a drop of blood or particular graphic of blood, and we do some many arrows and the occasionally dagger land in the victim toros. They are the previous intense sequence with the significant character battle. It is the infant of them meeting third and get rather rough, while you can the certain aspect and tone including the much blood or how many wounds are shows is biting sequence at pretty rather less time. That was the moment where I could wrong, but it seemed the pattern and the descriptive the Ramdan Telmirain soldier. We see the world most motion toward the soldier with the sword cutting away long before the makes contact, and then what seems like the soldier's helmet laying near the fallen body. Whether those really what they we mean to imply, and the regard is the grittier and the battles in the movie where there is the occasional bloody and the cut mark on the face, with the roast being when a sees word seeing tracking action and the open and the blurred seg. We see the blurred trailer, it leaves the victim palm and the most of the battle violence in the blood. While they probably make it thought the worst, it is actually the action the heavy and wanted a double kick on the PG rating as a warning of the parents about the taking their kids to see these. Much of the like first film are still few interest creature related creepy scene, so that's another thing want the young one adopt the violence, considering how it really graphic should not be too much more those look a good action fantasy to see. However, all the Prince Caspian gets of the slightly slow build the end of the result surprise its predecessor and makes much more eagerly awaited already announced 2010 release of Chronicles of Narnia, the views of the Dawn Trader Beyond Bond, and the inspired choice of the title character, and a great addition to the cast, and the Sergio Castillo and the fantastical evil as the meanwhile villain in this with Miraz and the Wild White, which was more tab. Miraz is an intense addresses for the Pevensie Prince Caspian and never falling prey to drama camp. I am also enjoy the addition of a few animal characters like the gorgeous Rome Ripichi, who offered some of the film lines views of the comedian Eddie Lizard, and the previous sequel visit by the films compares Harry George's Williams, the Trophy Hunter, and the Better. The special effect to seem opera formed in the last of the film. My biggest complaint about the film, however, would be the song they chose the end of the film. It made the song will Regina Spector. I am not quite certain, but just felt too moderated and cheesy of the strong movie was period of that movie. So song all of this movement would have to make the whole lot more sense. While I enjoy the first Chronicle of Narnia adventure, it is the sequel Prince Caspian that was meme over the bit more impassioned by the series. A wonderful story to tell. The Adamson and the cast in partly thank of this achievement all around. A great adventure film with the some geography and the fight sense that the tasteful film the wider audience appeal. However, I want the sequences remain too very intense and violent for a family film to keep see in mind before the bringing the whole family to it. Otherwise, Prince Caspian is a solid film that the best is predecessor with the greatest of ease. We see a bloody cut on the Prince Caspian's lip. Trumpkin has a blood bruised mark above the brow. A man points the sword at another man on the holes on the neck. As they talk, we see a little blood trickle down its neck where the sword and points, and man is a short and a narrow. We see a little blood. The man fight on one and beat the other up pretty bad. One slice and other leg, and the brief see the torn clothes with a little bat of blood, but character showed bruised and the voice some small cut. A creature wants to draw blood from a man so that they hand or drag a sword after a palm clicking, and we see blood across to hands. Some characters show bloody bruised mark to their faces after an epic battle. Loads of battle violence for silence opponent arose, killing a lot of people, character being thrown, tossed and crossed by waves, water, etc. Some blood goes of detail as well as review of the further explanation. The violence is enough to make calling this one of family film really difficult. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian movie review. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian is a 2008 family fantasy film directed by Andrew Adamson. It is a solid but very fluid adaptation. You get treated like a dumb animal long enough, that's why you become. You may find Narnia a more savage place you remember. First, let's talk about the plot. The mostly adapted the story from Prince Caspian. The novel is a respectful and faithful manner. There are some changes here and there, but for the most part, the film is a good adaptation. I really liked the ending, which was emotional. It was in the book and liked the beginning and how it started in a different way than the book, but in a still very intriguing and cool manner with good manner and action scenes. Speaking of action, yes, that it is the major problem I have had with this movie. This is a typically modern adaptation in all the wrong ways. The director decided to add the entire action scene, basically a war scene, to a picture in order to for it last 2.5 hours and feel more epic in a scope. And what did it actually make it feel less, especially more of stupid blockbuster? Andrew Adamson has never been a good director. He was not good for Shirk, and the most certainly was not good for this movie, and he returned it with his stupid ideas. That whole sequence that was invented here was just the worst. But I was did not care of the final action sequence, as it was again very short in the book, and here it was extended beyond and reasonable. Then the hinted romance between the Susan and Caspian was very annoying, and the very late arrival of Aslan was quite frustrating. Those kind of change really attraction with the otherwise solid movie. For all of these reasons, the Chronicle of Narnia, The Lion of the Witch, and The Wardrobe ended with beginning infinite better than the second installment. But that it is not say the Prince Caspian is a bad movie. It is a solid movie, affected a lot by those poor choices mentioned about it. All of the other scene worked wonderfully. I really enjoyed the scene with the Werewolf and the witch. It was pleasantly mature and dark. The whole movie was too mature in my opinion, but that sequence I really liked the not less. The acting again is not the strongest, but the kids are much more likely this time around. Elibert Caspian is a boring of an hero. Here he was in book. King Miraz as a solid vial, and all of that Talmarine was the depicted, but the decision to cast them the Lation character is admittedly very problematic. Dr. Cornelius is very underutilized, which is shame, as is one of my favorite in the original novel. But Trumpkin is very liked, and the Repeat is very well depicted and the quite funny at time. The passing is awful, and the film is way too long. Action looked to the characterization and the dialogue in a very ugly manner, but the specific effect continued to be spectacular, and the absolutely adopt the cinematography, and the scene was just beautiful to beyond that, especially the sea. And once again the score I was just magnification and so moving, the perfect accomplishing the action screen. The action itself is solid executed, but not as great as it should have been, especially having in mind that it was incredible important as it was the approach taken here. But even though I was disappointed in this movie, a lot in still solid and has it many strengths. The Chronicle of Narnian Crispies and the gorgeous scenery, absolutely magnetic story. The story, especially fact and the excellent beginning and the ending, but it is this way still a such major disappointed of the adaptation as the approach. It is just poor here. Some lot and plot point are the change from the book in a bad manner, and the action is not only incredible boring but overing and ended the seriously affecting the movie that could have been very good. Whose prophecy is it anyway? The Chronicles of Narnian movies take place in several worlds. Stimulationally, the magical fantasy land of the title is grounded in ancient Greco-Roman mythology ruled by the Scori and the superstition, and are populated by centaurs, miniatures, fans, griffons, talking mammals, tree spirits, and the such. The Pevensie kids are Homo sapiens children if WW Second England, which those spend most of their screen time and alternate lives in the Narnian where they are reality. C.S. Lewis wrote the novel in the post-war United Kingdom between 1949 and the 1954, and the pictures themselves are the produce of globalized 21st century economic dominated by multinational conglomerations and like the Walt Disney Company. All of these the influence can be felt in the world. Two Narnian films, The Lion, the Witch, and The Wardrobe 2005, and the latest Prince Caspian 2008. With bigger battle and the Scars monster and its predecessor, the must movie flaunt granted the visual effect and one notable and the expectation a dash more individually than the initial installment, thanks due to spotting appearance by the dominating Norian and named tribe by Trumpkin Peter Declan, whose eyes has to do all work underneath those long worksheets, and the latest wrinkles and the fearless feather spotting mouse named Rippy voiced by Alice Lizard and with flair and without overcatching. The Keepens and the franchise should also be delighted. The actor playing the Pevensie's children have get to graceful over the last 3 years or 1300 depending on the how are you counting. You never know where something going to the throw and awkward stage, but kids have only grown more photonic with time. As one of the was visual effect while of the CGI in Wardrobe and the festival, some dialogue seeing with the children displayed with looked and surprisingly sloped by screen work, especially for such a mega production hasty as the roots. Perhaps this time the great Aslan voiced by the deep and the rather bundle of the line has been the still much of the cuddly plush tool for the vanished kingdom of FAO Scarwards, and but some of the other sides and the thrilling notable by the flirts encounter with President Napture and the some mobile trees and the make Burners would move the designate in the Jeffy. There are the doft highly highly photosensed and the technology and the artistic achievement, but the return of the some specialist and the charm of Harry Shawns and the pioneer stop nation created. If you are at the novel, I have not already know your favorite character from the first movie like the Thomas and the Furnace and Mr. Hand Behavior will not be returning. Prince Caspian will take place centuries after the very question of the threat to real winded part one of a part of the begun the presentation Norian and the disport with the driven into the world and the logical to bring the succession by surprising and telemart King Miraz. It is never quite clear though that exactly the Narnians are. They are definitely not a space or the space because they include leopard and the bridges and the doors. They are called the divers in the credit note. People gain treasures and the encounter and the mice many of the home convents in England, but it is not made recall from the film Tiger Woods Cyclos Meredith Harris. The log yards of the moon of the home are uncountably, but the visual anti-Norian which would not Prince Caspian brands with his influent meditation Aston Moore, the Spanish the Italian who must return from the exile to claim the throne, and although he was son of the admin, he was not Norian at Almarin, and we do not really know how this as either unfortunately since. He figures prominently in the next two installments as well as Caspian registered as title as a pretty vacancy in his debut outing and the spanned on the story and the political blockbuilding at the dark on the derail record involving the breaded loaded and the journey who all together in the sweat straight field and expositional padding and too much for it is nearly 2.5 hour movie. When the film initiation plunges and the Caspian story, the princess the during escape from the uncles and the castle on the night Miraz's wife delivers him a mere head and the strategy unclear and are being introduced and a new character because we are supposed to care. All the filmmaker just enjoy to deleting the gratification to seeing the Pevensie siblings, all of the above probably in Warming London, the formerly Crankles and the Percival Skander Canis has become a trusted bucket of his tasty older brother Peter Musclos who resents and the regular teens against the having already lived the although as its golden boy high king of Nordian Susans and is learning fan of the nearly submit school boys, and the Lucy has developed voice and the grace to complete her natural curiosity. It will be stopped to the Caspian departments and restore the merchants and tractor son of Edmund Adamson and the Norian movie are mostly about the plot and the fourth necessarily in that order that are severely spectacles but did not approach the mythic grandfather and the reasons of the more grown-up film the John Boormans and Excalibur the Glimmer Tools and it is part the because of the character it is not Disney in the Neuron picture Disney in which creates some more and the dynamic element for the viewer that all the dramatic and the personal levels has command to the flamers fantasy who is the player have to opportunity to leave them the impression of the acquired signification beyond the tail demand for them who is tagger who is bigger and that word of the them in the story and the story and was released even the release of predesigned to play their producing fluffling perhaps and that we have to meet the requirements to admit or guess whatever certain may authoritative figure would not do the tension defaults a bit. The normal options as set forth in the movie for so far fairly clearly. I believe the beautiful line and the friendly behaviors don't trust the supplier ice queen bearing truckish delight of the hoist and the dark demas exploiting the force of the head but could simply a child could not and the what kind of lesson does communicate to children who can that is easy to write from wrong not a wise maximum. The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. Andrew Adamson follows up this tremendous movie version of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with the second in this race. Prince Caspian and its entertaining value for the money-stuffed families and fans of the G.C. Lewis books and they consider themselves in safe hands. Though in my view some of the magic has gone perhaps simply because the interest of the Narnian series itself declines exponential as it progresses towards the very uncomfortable theological stand finally in the seventh and last volume. It is also that in introducing a new more grown up and the placable dishy leading male the eponymous Prince Caspian boldly played by the Ben Baron ones of the children inevitably gets crowded out in the action. The loser is Edmund whose infiltration with the dark side gave the first story a thrill and underpins the Christian humanitarian message with all the foes and alike continue to find the explosive. Prince Caspian began with a brilliant narrative flourish. Our famous four Peter, William, Mosley, Susan, and the Edmund and Lucy are down in the Strand underground station in the wartime London. We know the date for the Glimpse newspaper, 12th July 1941, at the time of the British Soviet Pact and the strategic galleons of the course of very important too in the Narnian parallel universe. Just the children are the chafing and their reduced non-royal state. They find themselves and the transport back to the Norien that have been captured 13 years in the futures, during which has been precious in the advance in industry and technology. There are grows back and that's about it. The children region is a distant folk memory, and the Narnian with his gently footback and creature has been to over him human inventor the Trellmans and the King Miraz preparing to fort his reign by executing in nephew Caspian and decent sort in the belief in the friendship on the equal terms with the Narnian and even giving themselves a role. A might battle comrades along the with a lengthy temptation to know how the force of darkness targets and the resplendent commune for the Tesla swinging as a wicked white witch, though it is three question dimension with its Aslan now, and why is rather and he has the second coming, and why oh why has he made it before now? Well, there are an easy answer to this question, and the must instead complete the sequel fantasy movie staples. There are the gigantic material with the battle of also worrying the boring camblins and the conversion scenes in which Guy Bradley Lord and the elders debut the stage intention for the our benefit. This second episode certainly has much of the film innocence, opens and energy in this very largely due to another scene's scarcity of a performance from Georgie Henley as a Lucy, who is being able to see Aslan before anyone in a state of grace, exciting his siblings, and the scene in which she does so is rather during executed. It is also short of the stunt phase, quite different from the uncomfortable children in the group, and show the admission does not immediately replace with her point of view in a way we might expect. The Narnian saga is still on the rise, and over the five next movie, 5 year continuously replying of the fantasy theological continues between good and the evil before the arrival of the lavish book of relations. The last battle is going to get little wearing. Movie review: The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. I always feel a certain amount of sympathy toward who has attempted to adopt beloved stories into the movie. No matter what they do, there will be always someone who will find something to criticize, and the majority of the time the criticisms revolves often unfairly around change made to the story, necessitated by the process of adaptation, whether it's a character omitted, a subplot terminated. Most adaptations are forced to transic and the original story because of the time constraints of the medium. When I go to see an adaptation of a book that I have really enjoyed, I do my best to try and look past the story as the unfolded on the screen and focus on how they will manage to the repetition and the spirit and intent of the original. The last three installments of the Harry Potter series, Prisoner of Azkaban, Global, and the Fire or Order to the Phoenix, all took liberties with the source material but did such a great job of bringing the world and the character to life and capturing the essence of each book that I worked. Review: The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. Ram Man. I just got the anticipation sequel to The Lion, Witch, and the Word Drop, The Chronicle of Narnia, Prince Caspian. There is no transition from the first film. The second, you are dropped in the Narnian with an entirely new group of characters and are expected to figure out what has happened. Important item: 1 year in our time in 1300 years in Narnian. In the time of group, humans known as the Delmarian have taken over Narnian and have driven the creatures to the brink of extinction. We must Prince and Caspian, heir to throne and humbled on his uncle Miraz, hit list the Telmarine as like the fantasy world mafia. No one make it to retirement. Prince Caspian is capped to the board of Narnian, where the recruit and the surviving creature of Narnian to fight the Telmarine and the bring Narnian back to its glory. This is when the Fob and for the cement. Peter Abdons and the Susan and Lucy Popplewell and are brought to back Narnian to give a few family faces. Caspian loses the characters and magic at the first installment in the exchange for sword play. This is the highest body count in the Disney film ever. Unfortunately, it's slow and confusing, and about 30 minutes uses too long with the running time of the 2 hours and 25 minutes, and good luck keeping the kidding amazing that good with a dove and a talking rat. Zack. The Tales of Narnian continued in this follow that is superior to the follow-up, more action, more apparel, Drakkar and very little Chris and overturned Prince Caspian are quickly introduced to and how to run to at the throne of the Narnian, waiting to simply become of an age of the throne. His uncle Miraz's wife gave birth to his own institute, a couple to claim the throne for his bloodline, which involves murdering and Caspian the clear way. Norris and escaping the death with the help of the Professor Caspian feels through the forests which are steeped in the legend and the magistrate when the sympathy upon a pair of the reward and the real is so he buys a special horn on the side which is sound before begging and knocked at by the one rewards. We then cut to the Pevensie at 4 with the brief fight among the Peter and the classmate in the subway station are the towns and the dissolves around them. They quickly dissolve the land to not be quite the same. It appears the battle has destroyed their disgust and the number of years have passed and the words of or Aslan the line nowhere and to found the after joining and the previous royal grab the physician stumble across the rough trumpkin and about to drown after being captured helping Caspian. Earlier we used Miraz to display the Narnian mythical creature exists still in the knocking more to this myth of the grant of the Lord of Narnian while dreaming the need to wipe to the returning creatures of the land. Once Caspian hooked with the past and kings queens that are Pevens, we learned these people that Almaran came to the land and took over driving the Allmans introduced and the hiding Caspian of the fan of legend and the tales of Narnian thought him by his professor hand together with the Pevensie children to bring down the uncle and it claim to throne the destroying the kingdom to land to spot all the creatures instead of shining them. For here out of the film the pretty much of the streets of excellent action sequence with a lot of stake and the battle are brutal and the affecting of the viewers. We really get the behind and feels for the character in the world with the fight and the Telmarine case and being the stand of the film, the plot and the pacing of the film never slows down. The mythos, everything feels right of in ever lifted from the ever material. This action is also done really with good effect work on pretty much every level. The even more amazing that is the will and the overcome acting shortcomings of the couple of the leads and still make a solid fantasy adventure film. Anna Popplewell is just not add on in this film. She has to tone and the zero range and the Susan in her performance and voice while just being overall upcoming and just any the thing not much better is William merciless to King pattern and just to on the mode and face for every single thing that happens to him. Luckily can handle the action and sword play well and at least looks immediately for one time to time and reason why they deal with the thieves professor in a great work to George Henley and Lucy Sikander Abdomen. They easily perform their older contemporaries and the display the ability to act to make which you are more captured to the plot in this one. Peter drinking is also excellent in the Trumpkin and is grossly pessimistic while the other rhyming some good humor about the Virkest Davis also a soldier and the Trumpkin friend Nipkarik Eddie and the lizards and the one life the voice of the Repichip and the sword wedding red the real stand out then the Barnes Caspian the he easily carries the film when he has to and the utterly convenience to has fantastic world. We can feel the struggle with his path and we can carry himself in the action set pieces as well. In the end Princess Caspian is a huge setup and the forward to franchise and an excellent addition to the fantasy genre while still up to per the Potter and the Lotter film. It is pretty damn close. I cannot wait to see do the next film and they have made me a real in the franchise and not someone who is just willing to check out the picture bring or the down trader. Travis, you may be asking why he goes to see these. Everything critic out has been thrown in the movie apart. That's good question. That only short I can offer is I have no idea. I know this is kind of old news, but I feel it's my duty to report the such hazardous perils in the movie world. Otherwise, things is the day of feeling kindles and the lazy, but knows the really wanting to the game. Just I felt like seeing a movie was not much out to had not expect Prince Caspian. He was not beaten and the battered, but I thought I see myself after all. Could it be alive? Oh yes, my friend. I telling you that you have avoided in long. You are headed in the right direction. The most awkward and the word I think of describe the movie is drum, and I have that the redent and the redent get the picture other than why the foy Minran creature edition and even for special effect I could have sworn on the watching the Chronicle of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. just shy of 1.5 hour. Prince Caspian is almost long as the title of the first movie. Honestly, the only true enjoyment and I got of this film was in the form of the two great actors, Peter Draken and the Darful Trumpkin, and the return to Wirch and the Doffel's Nip Garden. Otherwise, I might have or gone and taken a nap because that's I really need the three time while watching this movie. No kidding, and no, do not get me started on the war writing. Peter, you would not happen to have the matches. Admit no, but I do have these pulls and massive flashlight out of the shoulders back. Peter, you could have the said something little sooner. Both boys chuckle. I have convenient abdomen. Just happen to have a huge fracas and a mass in the bag. Our final note: we are not stuff. It's a rhetorical question answer. Android Adams and Crispin Max. I admit actually enjoyed the first movie, which I not type and again. However, this movie reeks of unoriginally but is unbelievable similar to the first film, but it is borrows too much other films that found myself scoffing silently to the sense. For example, the captions and the Lord of Rings, the living trees that shows the last minute to win the battle. Lord of the Ring, the Jonias and the Maid of the Water that wipes out the several enemy souls that actually I cannot for the life of remember which movie I saw that it, but I know I have seen before anyhow. The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian Review. 1300 years have passed in the Narnian and a race of men called the Telmarine now rule. Hired to their throne in the Caspian Baroness who is battling Uncle Miraz and must enlist the aid of the Pevensie children to bring space the land. If we had £1 million, we had offered it to the first children fantasy sequel to promise not to describe itself as darker than its predecessor. That is not say that is the necessity and unwelcome characteristic, just that is the traditionally means our lead hit to puberty and no longer sings soprano and we got bad review last time, but sometimes just sometimes it justify and this sequel to the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is quite a bit darker and the good news is that is also better. It follows the films that boast strong special effects, decent children performances, and faithfulness to its source material, but somehow seemed a little empty, lacking the heart and the soul make the source novel such perennial favorites and the made say the Lord of the Rings movie into the such great example of filmmaking. This one's a little closer to what wanted to do the first time around to least giving texture to Nordian and some indications that is land that can does support an actual population and its full more conjuring tuck and the deep magic. It is step in the right direction. The opening of the last film, An Year Read Over World London, was one of the happier point and was also throws the straight into the action. More than 1,000 years after we last saw Narnian, a baby is born in the dark, heavy, fortified, and the castle promoting its father, Lord Miraz, and to order to murder of his nephew, the grateful and the ruler Prince Caspian. Ben Barnes escaping through a wardrobe is Caspian rider to the hundred wood where the find the supposedly extraordinary Narnian inwards in their shapes and size. Proofs of this follow Telmarine Caspian blows the mistress and the summons the four provinces back to the Norrian. The quarter Peter William Moses Susan Anna Pupelwell and the Edmund Sikander Canis and the Lucy George Hannin and the only older and they were all dealing with the falls and from their adventures in the different ways. In Peter case by the starting fight in Susan by the warding to attention of the north and the sure to go to the connection there it abdomen by feeling uncapable and the Lucy to bear remaining faithful to the idea that will one day to return the Narnian and so the stage is set Captain and the Pevensies have to find each other. Forget an audience with the magical creature of the Narnian take down the bad guys and the pressure the long vehicles and the Asman by returning appearance in the time of prize giving medals and the afternoon tea. The difference in time is that the enemies are not just make the believe creature but flesh and the blood humans and as such as they are villain and the scans and they were which to leave the books rather simply plot of the flash or the audition of the much political skull guy among the Telmarine both from the senses and Miraz himself and from the constants and the journal which adds some time of those other age of the inflating does not attract of the little of Miraz personal mass and that's commanded by introducing design among the Narnians some set of Nipkarik hands and the side missing after the happy clap first, especially in one side and seen just after the mid end point which is was not spoiled. Against these foes and their vast masked armies, the new good news and the perfectly cast burn banners Caspian is appropriately heroic and by the edges of insecurity and occasionally blushes the buns head with the high King Peter still trying to take the charge that make him to more than a cookie cutter swashbuckler, and there is romantic plot with the Susan and little judgment and the otherwise it knows confident charismatic duet that makes the perfect of the Barnes taking a bigger role and the next voyage of the Dawn Trader quite welcome the comedy weight. However, this is significantly finer than his predecessor is carried by the grumpy treasure award Trumpkin, beautiful and the played by the dependent Peter Drinkle and repetitive the fighting mouse voiced with the pieces by the habit lasses. Still, it also where the judge the principal view here is a urge and explained everything to emphasize moment instead and the letting of the flow at times the camera in triggers and that is clearly meant to signify something important to add this angle and around to admire the beauty of the New Zealand scenery and the excellent special effect. But this look how Peter and the show botting a virage of the fact born and to slow down and the board drama and the tensions execrable. There are also the frequent scenes that are just force and emotion the chef center and the example is described in the production notes in the softwares and the political correctness and African Norian has little to do but approving against repetitively full just to make the sure to get it and the performance of the older kids remain ropey mostless Patter still give the lessons and he the natural leader of man with the spotlight and the relating the increases and variety and the Caspian relating further from the impression that has worthy to hiking Purple Way and the meanwhile pours through sense which are required little but the artisan cannot seem to get the attraction of the character that which always leads to out of the load the younger pair and the better niece and the most interesting events of the play to always get the scene and advent in the easily star match of the quarter gets to the nothing but my make the funny and the scar match the Henley happily is ever bit charming as well as the first film around this central character hanger lost of brilliant realized animal monsters and the magical creature of all steps and this time the FX works in the admin new Florax the Gleefings and the better than the Harry Potters and the Miniature are the wonderful and the sight of the fans is compared take wide of the new novel and the length of stage battle scenes are the genius trailing both in the night at time associate and the sunlight and with me fast touch piece bigger number and high stakes they recall a multi-species Brehart and the rather than the slightly disappointing effort the end of the last film and the rare scene of the leads at stakes of course there is nary and drop of blood spilled by anyone despite and wholesale slaughter both sides and the distributing side of these kids manually swing daggers and the sword in the increasingly don't and the pressing through the level of violence into the kids film into the end perhaps the part a bit like the film itself effectively realized full of the character you have to love a little blood signification bad that the first film and to say the first Harry Potter's but we still can love it much as do the books the set of the keep improving at this pace Dawn Trader should be the fantastic experience. The Chronicle of Narnia Prince Caspian review. I must admit that it took me a quite while to write a re-review of the last cinematic installment of the Chronicle of Narnia saga. This is second installment. Prince Caspian tells the story of four Pevensie children returned to Narnia to aid Prince Caspian. Ben Barnes in his struggle for the throne and against to corrupt Uncle Miraz. I tried to think of the something different about this chapter in the compared to the first and the line, the witch and the word drop, but it is occurred to my just reaction to this movie seemed more or less than the same 2005 release. And what does the she about my feelings about the Prince Caspian? Honestly, I thought it was a solid and entertaining film, but both children and adult fan of C.S. Lewis saga might enjoy. That is all I can really say. There are nothing really unique about it, like many other adaptation of literary work. Prince Caspian do not faithful follow to literacy contemplated considering that I have never read of Lewis work. I was not particularly distributed by this and only reason I am aware of my differences between the literacy and cinematic version is in this internet. Like the previous movie, the cast and the pretty solely the actor who portrayed and the Pevensie children returned for the sequel due to the repeat aging and the children in journal work on the script begun before the line which and the world drop was released so filming could begin before the accurate Potter and the grew too old of their part. William Mosley's Anna Popplewell, Susan Skander Canis, and the George Henley all gave solid yet slightly uninspiring, and the performances as the four siblings. Viewers Canis got the chance to show at Benham and the peevish was in the previous film, mostly Protect, and the slightly darker side of the oldest brother Peter, who is dissatisfaction with being back in England and hard produced Boris the personality. Perhaps I should perhaps that Potter Boris with had been hunted through his handing of advent in the film was allowed to flourish in this film. It took military failure against the main villain of giving him boot in the ass of improvement in personality. On the other hand, Abdaman seemed remarkable change for the better in this film. One critic and one described his being to film Han Solo. I would agree, except Advent came off as much more and intelligent than Han Solo, and Anna Popplewell had convinced property Douglas Grammars to allow the Susan appear in the movie's major battle because she feared the character came off its passive and the lavish novel. Many fans of the novel and were appealed by this. Not being a literary fan of the saga, it did not bother me at all. At least they gave her something to do. Of all the Pevensie siblings, Georgie and Henley Lucy seem to have the change released, although she seems the tolerant of the Peter Burstins, and she was the adventure darker side in the fallen face. British actor Bad Boris portrayed the little role of the Prince Caspian Delmarine with the such man competitions, and the four actor who portrayed the Pevensies perhaps seem a little more competent in that his younger co-stars in the acting skill, but I could not sense anything remarkable about the performance plotting, and the Caspian evil uncle the Delmarine falls regular. Ruler King Miraz was actor Sergio Castillos and the made very effective villain but lacked Tada and the Swanton memorable portrayal, and the White Witch, who by the way briefly returned to bring a much needed spark in the middle of the story. If I must be honest, her briefly appearance was probably the best scene in the film, but not even Stavage, and the spectacular appearance could not overshadow what I feel was the best performance in the movie, namely the patter of Dinklags and the trumping a cynical red drafters, and really enjoyed the sharp and the caustic taken on the Darford and who is skeptic of idea of Islam and magic. As much as I enjoyed the Prince Caspian, I must admit in the found I much the remarkable than the first. Also, I found it difficult to maintain interest in the film that first half, and the switch back and forth between the Caspian flight or the murderous uncle and the Pevensies arrival in the Narnian director and George Adamson seemed to lack the gorge losses Peter Jackson and talented of seamless transition between the multiple storytelling within a film, but once the Pevensies as Caspian film why the movie seemed to discover its peace and the flawed and toward the hero's faulted attempted to attack the open mirage and the final showcase, and where two scenes gave me a sense of duo, namely the attacks of the trees and the river good upon the Telmarine army. It seemed as the either Adamson and Lewis had taken to implement the attack of the Gorgias, especially reminded of the entire attack upon the Ascent and the Lord of the Ring at the Two Towers. Prince Caspian is not the greatest movie I have seen the summer, nor there anything unique about it, but it can overcome the fact that it is an exact adaptation of C.S. Lewis' novel. Anyone might find the movie quite entertaining to watch. I heartily recommend it. Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian Review. Saw Prince Caspian today very good follow-up to the previous Narnian film, although Caspian is much different than Lion. If you are familiar with the books, it is easy to see that this movie is far more loosely based on the book than Lion was. One of the more glaring differences in this movie is how much the magic is gone and how much more dark and gritty this movie really is. What is the surprising is how much of an action movie this trending out to be. The battle sequences are big and glorious, fantasy CGI effects, and the more violences this time around. The story is told well also with a very good beginning. This acting is quite good. The kids are wonderful as the supporting cast. Ben Barnes and the Caspian Peter Declang as a Trumpkin and the Serge Caslio as Miraz. Overall, I found this movie to be very good, a worthy follow-up to The Lion, and definitely a more mature movie. This series has definitely carved it has the niche against the Lord of the Ring and the Harry Potter film. I look forward to Voyage of the Dawn Treader in 2010. Review the Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian. Narnia sequel delivers good family entertainment, but it is just a little too much of an action film. The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian takes place 1 year after the event in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the essential film in the series, derived from the CG and the lavish rescue fantasy series. In Narnian years, however, it 1 year represented about the 1300. Fortunately, watching this movie does not feel quite that long. Once more was our introductions and the blueprint in the world of the Pevensie siblings, but brother and Peter William Mosley and the little brother Edmund Skandar Canny's big sister Susan Anna Pupplewell and the little Lucy George Henley that find themselves transport via a worldwide second era the tube station in the Trafalgar Square at the Narnian the last time with the dispatch with White and the Tilly Sweden and the war evicted to royalty. The White and the makes up became Samu here. It is just sorely missed. The normal of this new movie seems to you cannot go home again, especially you are arrived 1300 years later. The new Narnian is placed reflection of the old, the taking besties and the mythological creature live preciously on the marriage of the kingdom and were ruled the Telmaran and the day race of entirely dark and the hard humans to belong to the need apply. The Pevensie clean has been summoned to Narnian by Prince Caspian bin Barnes and who felt the castle when it is become clearly this uncle Lord Miraz George Castillo without of him. Miraz to cafes be equal at the home starting in 300 and where you might ask in the might and the lion Aslan has not been a scene in the millennium at the least not until Lucy claps and eyes in the forest for my money. There is entirely too little of Aslan. Prince Caspian also as the voice of the Liam Nisan and to real sound to hide the middle dull. The point is the Aslan looks great and in the new Narnian looks the count for all. Speaking of the which of the actor playing the Pevensie children and the high grown in the 3 years since the film and the make to better drama for the thing and they are better actor now able to register a better of emotion. There are also some welcome new addition including the Sora Dapper Trumpkin, Peter Dankler and the white mythological fantasy genre the without surely Dapper and the trekking mouse named the Rappy Cheap Hedring voiced by the Eddie Slurs. The first Namrian and the movie and the first discussed in the term of the C.S. Lavis Christians and the some policy with the new film in the unlikely to provoke and such discussion such more as this predecessor Prince Caspian is an action film to the of an action film as the battle and pulled by the lyrics empathy atmosphere and the abyss wise get it is more standard rapid cheap directed and you Edmondson and made the first film the with director the short film and the steel stamp all together at home with the live action it cannot quite work up the magical atmosphere especially when the film is continuously being granted by the much dreaded lines the throne is the rightful and the mind still this is a bigger and darker Narnian movie and although it did not leave by the finished and the inevitable sequel the driver family entertainment good memo the predecessor next time out of the duffers and Modastan and the definite more repetitive grade B rated BG of epic battle action and the violence. The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian Review. The world of Narnia, the magical Chilim and the False Seven C.S. Lewis fantasy novel has always struck me as something out of the children's story filled with the fierceness and heartfelt character and the captured by feel-good moralization. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. The 2005 franchise started by director Andrew Adamson only cement and the theory. The film's CG rocking animals and PG better scene along with the definite handed Christians along and made of the Disney adaptation that the dawn like a spoonful of sugar. The second installment, The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian pick up the either year of 1300 years after the year film depending on how you ask. But not much has changed in the series but continue to feel like a Lord of Ring light for the quarter of Pevensie's children. It has been the year since that return from the fighting the good fight in the wardrobe and they were willing in the world. We are really London bickering on the tube platform but in Narnian last millennium and the plus has been very eventual. The magical creator of the Narnian are but gone travel to the brink of extinction by the tool and human Telmaran. One night the wife of the King Miraz and delivers a soon spelling trouble of the king's nephew as they are the waiting for the title under the cover of darkness. The Benevolent and the Dr. Cornelius Singh, Prince Caspian of the Out Castle, bulking soldiers and the Prussian concerned the forest. Caspian blows a magic horn. Meanwhile, back on the trouble and the platform, the children are suddenly without warning transported to Narnian where they can soon discover it is not why they remember. Yes, British school children transported to a magical world in the train station or GK traveling. How could you? It does not take long of the children to team the Prince Caspian and the witch ascent of the castle battle with the Narnian is as true their soldiers. The first battle scene with its diving area and the Gapet Grads is the close and the film comes to truly revert sequence. The effects are naturally seamless. Expectation of Cassie Sabri, wedding mouse and the brings to mind the boss and the board's character from the short film which are Admission also directed the actual of the strategy. The battle is the fought phases and the word theories dispatch are the violent one but we think to file like to child play. The script of the Mr. Admission returning to write Christopher and the makeup stuff and MC feeling and the consists mostly of exhibition and the weak ones the particular from the better darkness so they nail everything less the much needed cameras and the geography and the Rafael as King Miraz and actual Sergio Castillo in the certain one manically real and that toothless and which was the previous film though is a proving equal effective. Same while with the Pevensie children continues to customize and the huge contribute such cotton as the children themselves the characters were the better their male counterparts and a purple and the appear of the comfortable and this around the Susan and this wide mean by young Lucy and happily wide growing to the anyone princesses could have been the shown by keeping the faithful truth out and the word leader Peter William most is great very upset and the we same backload not entertainment and the bread second the Kenny still has not gotten over the transit transmission and the last meanwhile Prince Caspian himself been banished from the history was badly registered and more much hanky poster and the folder but of Narnian is the world and creator also the never achieved the great evil and the middle earth of even however the get matter is the sense of place as meted by home that it is second installment like to Harry Potter stays the Narnian film might and grow up a little for a short and while Caspian delivered then a line roars and the song play to face like a movie then a very special episode of Narnia. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian review. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian. Who buys movie tie in the game? We all answer seems to be a lot of people as they keep coming and often the quality is inversely proportional to how too soon the after the film hit the silver screen that game appeared that's somewhat to expect the developers and often forced to rush out and any old rubbish to meet the hype cycle right it is peak. Everyone's in the though the similarities release movie game is a jump. Expect the Prince Caspian case to give it all its title, The Chronicles of Narnia. Prince Caspian, it is not one of these games at the same time. It is a truly awful game. It merely average for the most part. It is an action game aimed at the younger player with a something of very easy puzzle and along for the ride. It plays surprisingly like EA runs of the Lord of the Ring movie game, which is not that surprisingly giving the sheer fantasy setting by the attention and the usage of sword and soldiers mathematically creation at the same time. The world of Narnian is generally brighter and the happier than that Middle Earth, even that bad things are happening. Prince and the Prince Caspian has its share of the movie clips or those like the film but were not strong and suggested at least a passing knowledge of the plot of there is preferably with the book as the game is very bad at the progressing narrative in anything approaching a chronient and the fashion. It's a pity especially as the feature as a new section of the narrative the bridge the gap between the end of the line the witch and the wardrobe and the Prince Caspian right of the start of the game when you have to define and the care and the chair parallel from the invading Talmarine army. Unfortunately you are give a little cute of you are attacking all the invading soldiers while the objective are simply they are often very well explained to let the which can lead to returning through many of the same repowering parts and otherwise forth. It is this repentance is the province of the Prince Caspian was feeling you beat at the same creature over and over again and beyond improving your health and getting to play a variety of different creatures. There is progressive skill to learn the different ability to take advantage of besides changing the location. The game plays exactly the same at the conclusion as it does at the start. The game boasts and the features and over 20 characters and to be the one of them repetitive possibility to find is mouse warrior and the convenience but many of them play in a very similar style. That kind of repetition might not be a problem giving the young audience that the game is pitched at the careers at PG rating of the mid fantasy violence which is possibly the offless way saying you can ride and around the back of a game sequels and the people like Barris is not a fact that the action often they become cluttered and very quickly to well best my cameras and the issues combined with the combined and the lack of competitive edge enemies the either stop it and the over numerous and sometimes both. On the plus side it does support two player and the operative play which does make things slightly more fun to make over were not being too harsh on the from old gamer perspective. We are not past some the young gamers, and they are initially somewhat wide to visual design which runs too close to the film, although is not way that's a stunning look for a system with the visual capability of the Xbox 360 version of the reviewed last players and the quickly annoyed at the lack of direction and the generally an exciting combat that did appear the fact and the pretty much mere container in the game can be ashamed upon the rival collection and the shield presses on the slowly improve your health more than you would might thought you ever. Die Hard and the CS Lavis fans would undoubtedly gain more enjoyment for a decent and the leather band of the books, while younger fans of the movie might get some enjoyment the Prince Caspian, but enjoyment that are not likely to last very. Google Chrome and the might installment and model into your device without your knowing. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian review. The Narnian films are solid moneymaker for Disney despite the flood of fantasy films that have been hitting the market since Harry Potter. Disney wireless version of the latest Narnian film Prince Caspian is a confusing and repetitive game that will be disappointed fans of the movie or books. You play a Prince Caspian trying to free Narnian from the iron grip of King Miraz by gathering by allies. I really hope that was uploaded because the game's storyline was very confused and an idea was going on. I had not seen the latest movie, so the plot always consisted of my taking the sum about the Telmarine of finding someone lost relative. The top-down view of the Caspian, you control only character in a very line fashion and move room using the directional and the pay to complete objective and the fight soldiers objective range for the finding friends to retrieving book to solving simple puzzle. Most of it pointless and does not end up you in the world and Narnian finding Pinis, and the sequel is not exactly the idea of fantasy adventure. The action in the Narnian consists of sword fight with the soldier. You will not fight any other creature in this game besides soldiers, and though very thoughtless and the battle are prepared come close to the soldier and you might enter fight screen putting the last and the you me enemy press up the quick attack right of the regular and one turn for a slow but powerful attack. A bar below at the matter and one pass the right time allows you to perform combo. The regular and the attack take too long and the go get the time the quick attack pretty easy to defeat everyone. You can cross the soldier and powerful than you and it is used to block it slow and hardly ever work. I just kept pressing up and the timing combos. Later in the game your forest friends have their spirit power. Whenever you are hit on their enemy block you attack your spirit matter raise and you feel entire in the raw combination and displayed on screen performance. The spirit attack are very useful and help you beat soldiers quickly. Also sometimes and during the battle the spirit the power would you there and their time were not little exploration and the wood. Beating a soldier give you experience points level up and you can apply the skill point to attack and overhead dispatch and just them all the attack defunding does not and the spirit seem to increase the damage on the on more you level. The information and the shows you level progress your items and food used to regen health. If you are low on health make you eat food before a battle and because you are in fight and you cannot exist out of that until you win or lose. The game machines are easy to learn but I still imagine younger player we will be bored and you will be walk around the talk to some tell you to find or that you may move on the next screen and the quick will see you find items bring back to the bat but a lot of times once you exist a screen the game would not you go back and the sum of the side quest and I could never do and after a while I just did not care to ever try and complete. Graphics are just okay the characters and large but there is lot of detail of the world yourself and you do not ever the slant the line until the game is over. Pretty much more less is Caspian and the soldier the magic line. It is not really annoying and after a while just of you can collect 3 effects and the game amulets and the armors and the crown. I only was able to collect of them. I so have the idea happiness of collect you 3 and was not about to play the game again out find breeding the game unlock an arena mode which is fighting soldiers stop until you die if you board you during story mode. Here is the game chance to put you in the bonus game comma. Verdict: a confusing plot and dull gambling and the game for recommending this event. The Narnian fans perhaps the more interesting quest, difference and miss and the more open environment would have made game enjoyable as the Narnian ended being the most boring fantasy would I had ever visited. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian movie review. The fantasy franchise is growing up the fast, making this sequel a better movie than its predecessor, but one with much more less to say. The Lion and the Witch and the World Birth at the magical portal that carries the four Pevensie children and the world in the enhanced land of Narnian is the tutorial wardrobe. The Prince Caspian, the owner, falls instead of subway station, and the shift conveys neatly the difference between the film adaptation of the two novels. The first drawing on the metaphor and the physics and with intimate and mysterious yet be narrow and the threadbare. The second of the construct of a scale and the occasionally impressionary right from the point a point to be with plenty of dramatic stop along to way in technical terms. Prince Caspian is an improvement on the predecessor. Is almost very similar to like book on the which is based. The luck much is new way of deeper research and the considerable sharper and entertainment than the first film, but lately it is applied to more than entertainment. The story being even a year after the Pevensies Peter, William Moses, Susan, Anna Paul, Mason, and Lucy Henley returned from the Narnian where they had established themselves as the legendary king and the queens, and Humdrum lives as everyday teens in the country London. They are coping with the demotion, and the best way to can you better the eldest is not coping well. He has lost the throne is not the scene of entitlement and the frequent fantasy over the previous slide and the changed one in the subway platform that all track to trend and the broadest wishes away the prevences and the dupkin and to crimson and the sunlight beach. Someone has command them back to Narnian. The subway is young Prince Caspian B. Barnes, and we well the before meet him in the meanwhile the discover that during their 12-month absence Narnian the age 1300 years and there is not aged well. Foreign endeavors until Brian have subjected and the land of but it right to mythical and magnificent of centuries divers and to talking rat in the trees to longer dance and the animal have mostly gone far. What the cruel surprise and the Miraz has stolen the Telmaran throne and the Caspian region, and the hear of driving praise in holding necessitating emergency magic horn the call the brought the Pevensies back to the Narnian with the help of the Crankle and the dwarves of many other kind and the name Trumpkin, Paterdex and the kid of eventually entered the Caspian, and together assembly of the Motley and the forts of the tail create and look do Telmarine army. The village from the line the witch of the Prince Caspian is one of the degree of the quest story to word story to mirror the shifted between the first and the second of Peter Jackson Lord of the Ring film. The player and the more empathetic but also rider and the battle give way to battle siege Cantor and the happier director Andrew Adamson working from a script to write the with Christopher Makers and the Stephen M.T. Filler has taken to real soldiers and the scenes earlier outside dialogue in the crispies and the set and stretching and more spectacular the space of the more lovely despite one or two more plot twist too many and the action sequence of more interesting and the still like narrated the path and complexities of Jackson telling in film, but those difficult qualities of the conjure in the film who has caused made up almost entirely to teenagers and the talking animal. Moreover, while this film is darker and more violent and that film is also the fender and the drink and dropping in the views and action of the bring life and the healthy injection of the iron in the grumpy story type, the youngest actor playing the prevents have to grow more fully in the themselves as well as the result do not quite the radius and the sympathetic heroes merciless and the better is particular has crossed to threshold for the most boy to almost man and development. The film puts good use in the best stage and the duel with the various Miraz costling and expectational good in that latter, and the how was Miranda played by a strong multinational trouble of the managed to back to themselves the while scene in the Spanish exercise through a variety of the violence message and the goddess as the dashing Caspian British stage and the Barnes has considered in these views and the Robin look at doors of a many junior high girl through one house without the feathers led 17s pop star coffee spots and the Tilda twins and Liam Neeson return limited but important cameos and the white with the voice of Lion Aslan respectively. Prince Caspian is a less imperspective film that it is predecessors worldwide second, and the fatherlessness of the Pevensies are mentioned only eclipsed and there are not emotional wounds deep to the violent train of forgotten middle child displayed by the advent. Indeed, the most significant interpersonal quarrel of the film is terrorism competition between the Pater and Caspian for the title of the most impetuous boy hero. Still, this is not a film without moral texture challenges the met but also failed the consequences of the latter and glossed and while Chris Christmas, a glory about princesses in the face of doubt, the perils of temptation, faith in the unseen, again the hand of the preceding. It is not bad the hardly than in the preceding film, loneliness and the confused, the final more satisfying to striking to a legit note of the opportunities past friends and the depart dreams outweigh the Prince Caspian may be less word of the innocent wonder the predecessor, but it is a smart better film like the younger smart the Narnian franchise has to better and grows grown up. Review of Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian movie. Despite what I have made sad in junior high school, math turned to the relevant in my everyday non-rocket sciences life. The math beyond a drum solo, the fraction of visual competition, even the do not show gun in the first act if you don't use the third rule in the really about the balancing two or side or a plot question. I are people who find the math escalating and I am jealousing of them, but while math profession and the might mean less equation the poppy and the bigger fingers but not the calculate tips. I am not sure I did much of the Chronicles of Narnia. Prince Caspian directed Anders Adamson appears to have the landed heavily combinations of the formulas in creating this second installment, talking about element of this film and the people already like and adding him all together. And while the might have looked awesome on paper, it did not turn on that the on screen. Adamson shrugged and shrugged too, and the first installment of the Narnian series still point and the pretty picture of the world created by the C.S. Lewis in the 7-book series, The Chronicles of Narnia, the CG images of the Aslan Lion views by Liam Neeson and the repetitive the Gallant Mouse and the Addis Lizard and the other fans monitors and the jungle the returning around Narnians and striking realistic show in the pool and New Zealand and the cocktail and the returns and the landscapes of the film create a hyper realistic background and the ideal of the this kind story. Here the first important bit of the math and the year England and the England equal is 1300 years in Narnian when the four Pevensie kids are called back to their magical kingdom. Every day new during their region long dead with a carrying including amount of experiencing dialogue. We learned the creators of Narnian have been all about the totally subtract for the landscape by the Telmerian human led by the evil Bosman Miraz, and we intentionally suspect the prince Uncle Miraz is a bad man because he has pointed conquest board and the put boast on the table, and when the she sent assistants to Teen's room in drop up Miraz wants to the throne his nephew, and the wicket of the score for this Germanic and the world property by the current tutor Chronicles and the Caspian encounters the magical creatures of Narnian and sword built an army reclaim the throne of the himself and the kingdom of the Narnian. The Pevensies of called back using the magical horn and the battle begins. Underlying themes of the faith, loyalty and the pride and flash out and the less subtle and the word in the first film occasionally clonking over the head with the Christian agenda. Lewis known as a Christian apologize but the series and remind the popular among the folks of faithful because the series are generally engaging adventure. Unfortunately, Edmondson or the unnecessary slows the plot to linger over the children faces too. We will sure to soak the whatever lesson it and hand the overacting message of entering the crisis faith that can be grasped easily through the natural progression and the interpretation the young Lozi. Pevenses the really trouble lies in the stable wooden acting for the Anna Popplewell who has played Susan Pavens flat exploring dialogue from the everybody and the smarting of element that will recycle Prince Caspian in the creation of the Levis. So why he has feel like a young mango and the mentor for the Prince Bride and could be association the birds of Miraz about the killing father in a Spanish accent. The races for the forest are the similar landscapes and the competition of the press and the forces of Antor in the return of George and for myself looking for the ever and the sense of Giffen Circle Castle, the moonlight and the rock of Harry Potter. On the upside, the battle sequences were fresh and exhilarating, giving the Edmund Skender Canis and the Patrick Pevenses William mostly an opportunity to impress on both sides of screen. Patter Dicklang and the stage Trumpkin Nillard Nesassi Bridge and the preference and the Fio's Christmas Colombo in the night and the museum forever to quiet glowing delivery it is hard to wish the had to the impact the before shooting be gone. All in all, Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian failed to raise the novel and the level the predecessor as Lance say to twist the film together happened the same way twist and despite admission effort to hold the greater than the sum of its part. Contact camera film critic Janet first after you have seen the Empire Strike Back. The Narnian bunch don't hang about in the second part of the series. You are whisked from a wartime London tube station on the typically beach in the first 12 minutes. The line takes a long time to show up. Tilda Swinton and the witch only in ice cameo, and there is no wardrobe at all, but the Eddie Lazard and the mouse are sequel censures a Telmarine army that seems to based on the Spanish consider and the rather Shakespearean world breaded evil the uncle. There's plenty to catch the eye, and the CGI is most better quality than the first film. Kids love the idea of the alliance with the animal kingdom as well as bows and the rose, which are tribal middle class prevences get to the wild with the ghost, and there is genuine feeling of the horror of the occupation in the financial kingdom. The book was written in 1951, which is fears with all really recent, and the sympathetic British and Rod Adamson again showed mainly in the invite New Zealand, but it is a far media grappled Narnian with the first film, and the downside the plot is a bit bigger and only sporadically involving and bit partners make a strip, and the character exacts including cemeteries and the talking animal and walking trees exploring the effects. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian Film Review. The Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian follows the story of the second book in C.S. Lewis' epic children's tales, plus tosses in the extra sequence unique to the game in the effort to bridge the 1300 years gap in the Narnian history. In the time since the Pevensie children left the magical land, Narnian has been taken over by the Telmarine, and the Talking Bird has been driven into the wilderness, and it with the player to take control the 20 different characters, including the awesome Talking About the refugee for the movie, and help the titular hero defeat the Dismount and the King Miraz. The adventure spans 6 different stages and a nice variety of location. You might be expect even the source of material during the 6-8 hours adventure. You will guide the Pevensies and the various mythical creatures through impressive the large scale battles, castles, crashes, and the escapes the various caves and the ruins. The forest it is failure linear through the tale, and you are allowed to choose the order in which some tasks are take through the gameplay, and you can repetitive time. It was the daily necessity to make the clear at the guard tower 6 times in a row, all told to same nice variety in the puzzle solving and action. The action same feat, each character has to attack the buttons with the light attack button, refuse the simple instruction, and the undemanding, and to sure most of the encounter the generic Telmarine, but the action does not have two moments in the scan taking control. The trees smash holders of the Telmarine soldier of the riding round are gained back to the burst captains in the fun. I don't care who you what you are taste you are.